Hello? What the? Okay, I don't even know how to explain this. So basically, by unmuting myself, wait, that makes no sense. Wait, I just muted my mic and now it's working. I've got the sign here. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. That makes no sense whatsoever. But anyway, it is what it is. I think I saw recently it happened to people. This always seems to happen. It's never happened to me before, but there you go. Yeah, you got to laugh it off. So we're back. I'm going to go through your questions. And basically what I said was nothing. My Game Week 9 team is going to be identical to a lot of people who wildcarded in Game Week 8, but it is what it is. But at least this is all working now, I think. The sound should be go. Look, I don't know if you can see this. Let me try to show you. So I've got the stream deck here. Look, it literally says it's unmuted. And now it's working. I have no idea what happened there, honestly. But there we go. Yeah, it's just probably some software issue. Anyway, let's go through the questions that are happening now. And we live and learn. So basically, I need to mute myself so my mic works. Great logic. So, yeah. Welcome, Lager. Welcome, Maranya. And welcome to everyone. I appreciate everyone who was quick to let me know. Because actually I was talking to myself, and it's not a nice sight. Yeah, thank you to everyone for the updates. So yeah, just bring your questions in. I have decided to make a few changes for my wildcard team, and they include the likes of Kilman, who I don't think I would have brought in my Game Week 8 wildcard team, for example. I like his fixture in Game Week 11, and even in Game Week 12 to a certain extent, but he is going to be facing Zaha in that Crystal Palace Wolves game. And I do have Anderson, but to be honest, you could go for Mark Gay instead. If you can do something with the extra 0.2 million, I'm going to put a poll out very soon. And it's basically a matchup between two duos. So Martinelli and Anderson versus Gay and Barnes to go a bit more differential, you could say. But yeah, it's good to be back. I was literally about to press the button to end the stream. So yeah, at least we don't have to do that now. Refront Stream Deck. Yeah, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure it's the Stream Deck's fault, actually. I think it was the microphone and the interface, and then it caused an issue in the Stream Deck, but there you go. Why are you going Son over KDB? It's a very good question. I think one of the main reasons why, apart from his ownership, which is intriguing, is because I would eventually move to someone like Son in the next few weeks or Mohamed Salah, but I am open to actually going for Kevin De Bruyne now. And I think I might also need to do Anderson down to Gay instead to fund that move as well. But there you go. But yeah, I think with Heung-min Son, the main reason why is because he's someone I could actually potentially keep up until Game Week 17. And then obviously with the blank that De Bruyne has in 12, he is going to be a transfer waiting to happen. But I have to say over the next two, he's probably the best premium to have. And you could chop and change between all these premium options. Let's see what else we have. So morning, then, in your opinion, if you don't use the wildcard this game week, when would be another good game week to use the wildcard? I think game week 12 would be a really good one, although it is a bit awkward because you still want these City assets later on. So I would say game week 12 or 13 is probably a really good time. You know, if you don't use it now, I wouldn't use it in game week 10 or 11. Start one, Walker Peters or Kenny Tete. I would probably go for Walker Peters. Start Tsimikas over Trippier, already have Pope. I would start Tsimikas this week. I think he's got a great chance. I think in Fantasy Football I've actually, and some predicted points and all of that, I think he's actually right up there, even over the likes of Trent. So yeah, I probably would start Tsimikas over Trippier, but I still think Trippier's a good option in isolation. I know you don't really expect a clean sheet there for Newcastle, but still, the point stands. On wildcard, go Martinelli or Barnes with a view to swap back to Martinelli in Game Week 13. That's the thing, I'm also debating this in my head. I think Barnes has a much better chance of getting a higher ceiling in Game Week 9, and he's got the better fixtures, of course, and Martinelli blanks in Game Week 12, so I think you could just go for Barnes and bring Martinelli back in. The issue is losing a bit of value, but maybe by the time we bring him back in around Game Week 13, Martinelli will be around 6.4 or 6.5 million. Welcome, Nick. Son over KDB is only viable if you want alternate captaincy option in Game Week 11. Yeah, that is true, and that's another reason why I'm looking to do it as well. City obviously facing Liverpool, and in Game Week 12 they obviously blank. And the thing is, I am still open, by the way. It's a really good point you guys raise. I do prefer De Bruyne overall, and he could be the better option in the next two game weeks, and then you can bring Son in Game Week 11. But of course, you're booking in a transfer, which I'm not a big fan of on the wild card. Good morning, the Flying Dutchman. Salah or KDB on a wild card? I'd go for KDB at this moment in time, but Salah is maybe perhaps the better long-term pick with the Game Week 12 blanking mind, but I'd probably say KDB actually. It's just the fixtures over the next three for Liverpool are pretty poor overall. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate it. What do you think about Rashford? Could he start tomorrow? Yes, he could. He's actually he started training yesterday, I believe. Same with Martial. So that's good news for United, and they have more options at their disposal up front against Man City. So he could start. Yeah. Kane and Foden or KDB and Zaha? I prefer KDB and Zaha, to be honest. I think that's the better duo. Hey Dylan, I want to sell Kane. Who should I bring in? Tony or Solanke or Wilson? Tony for me. Solanke's a really good enabler, and he's only 5.7 million, but I think in isolation it has to be Tony. He's the best option so far. Martinelli, Mount and Mitrovic, who do I bench? I mean, that's a tough one. I probably would say Martinelli, but it's a really close one between him and Mount. I definitely wouldn't bench Mitrovic at the moment. What about Creswell? Not really feeling him, and he is going to sometimes be benched for the likes of Emerson, especially with Europa Conference League in certain weeks, but I wouldn't go for him. I'd rather go for Zuma, who's the most nailed-on West Ham defender, and perhaps Soufal. Creswell isn't really... I don't think he's worth the price and the hassle, in my opinion. Soufal versus Williams, if it leaves 0.6 million in the bank for KDB to sell in the future... In that case, I think Williams is the better pick. And also think about it, in Game Week 12, Soufal is going to be playing Liverpool. And that's another reason why I got rid of him since the wildcard team video. Hi, mate, would you do Cancelo to Trent for free? I wouldn't get rid of Cancelo for Trent, to be honest, despite the blank in Game Week 12. I wouldn't do that. Cancelo for Fana, I'd start Cancelo, to be honest. Yeah, I wouldn't start for Fana over him. Isak to Tony for free or roll and play Soufal. I would do it for free. I would make the transfer because Isak could be out for up to a month, so I would just make the move now. Pope or Sarr, I would go for Nick Pope, but Jose Sarr's a great option as well, very overlooked. He was fantastic last season too. Man City captain Haaland, KDB, or Arsenal captain Martinelli, Jesus, or Ivan Toney. I wouldn't go for an Arsenal captain. It could be a high-scoring game there, but I wouldn't do that. I'd go for a Man City captain, and for me, it probably has to be Haaland, but Kevin De Bruyne is another really good shout. Hey Dylan, would you get rid of KDB to bring in Madison? That's a good question. I don't think I would. I would maybe try find another way to get Madison in, because with KDB, I would ideally move to another premium instead in the weeks to come, not necessarily now, unless you're in a wild card. And in that case, you can change things up a little bit. Start Emerson, Zaha, Nico Williams, or Andreas. I'd probably start Zaha, to be honest. Which fourth defender are you looking to play over Trippier in tough games? That's a good point. It's really a mixture between Kilman and Anderson. So I can actually show you in FPL.team. So I still can't believe the muting thing, by the way. I'm looking at it now. So if we go here to FPL.team, I'm going to bring it up, actually. I didn't have it set up here. So we're going to go to FPL.team. And here we go. So we're going to load up my wildcard team here. And I think it's all updated. So yeah, let's go through this. So in game week 9, obviously you see what I've done so far. But in game week 10... I'd play Trippier once again against Brentford, do a double up, although there is a conflict between Newcastle and Brentford. But then in game week 11, I'd play Kilman at home to Nottingham Forest, and Anderson is playing Leicester away, but he probably would be second or third on my bench there. But in game week 12, I'd play both, and they are facing each other, but I don't think a 0-0 is out of the cards, really. But I do have Zaha as well. But to be honest, I do like the structure and how my team looks like in all of these weeks. Of course, you're not going to score points in every single way possible, and there will be blanks for some of these players, but I do like this kind of rotation, and they've got good long-term fixtures, especially in the case of Crystal Palace. So really it's Wolves, or Kilman in this case, in game week 11 against Nottingham Forest, and then both of them will be playing in game week 12, and then they provide decent cover in the games preceding that and also before, such as in game week 9, for example. If I need Kilman, he can come on, and I don't think a clean sheet against West Ham is that unlikely, to be fair. That game could be a 0-0 as well. So yeah, that's how I'm kind of looking at it, and I do prefer it over Soufal, who plays Liverpool in game week 12. Broya for an enabler. He actually has a decent chance of starting. There are reports that he could start over Aubameyang, but I wouldn't go there. You know, you can go for Solanke, who's more nailed on for a little bit more, and more importantly, you've got Mitrovic and Toney for just $1 million or so more. But it all depends on your budget, what you can do with the extra funds, but I do prefer the other options I just mentioned for now. It's a wait and see with Chelsea assets. I would only go for Reece James at the moment. Who to captain this game week? I mean, I'm going for Haaland, kind of boring old stuff there, but I would also be open-minded with the likes of De Bruyne, Harry Kane, and there's always going to be someone like Madison, who I think has a really high ceiling this week against Forest. Salah, Son, or KDB on the wild card? Well, I'm going for Son at the moment, but I think there's a good argument for each single one of those picks. If you want someone for the next 2 game weeks, I go for Kevin De Bruyne, and then you can switch to Son or Salah. Thank you, Matthias. I appreciate it. Would you do Saka to Zaha this week? No, I'd probably do it next week, if anything, but not in Game Week 9. I think Saka has the highest ceiling. Crystal Palace, if you look at it on paper, they've got a decent chance of a result here, but their record against Chelsea is very poor, and yeah. Gross or Madison? Madison, all day long for me, with the fixtures in mind. Would you keep Edison? I probably would look to sell. He does blank in Game Week 12 as well, and I would go to Nick Pope, maybe Pickford or Gaeta. What do you think of Mings over Anderson? I don't trust Aston Villa defensively. I wouldn't do that. I would just go for Anderson, Gay, even Tarkowski potentially. Soufal or Gay? I'd go for Gay. Do you consider playing Ward instead of Pope this game week? Not really. I don't see a clean sheet for Leicester. That's why I haven't considered the likes of Justin or Castagna in the defence. Ward or Iverson are really just there to be on the bench if needed, but Pope for me will just start every single game. Barnes or Zaha? Zaha. Maybe not this week, but in the long term I prefer Zaha. How about to captain Ivan Toney because his fixtures against Bournemouth? But Bournemouth have done very well against non-top 6 opposition, so honestly I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't captain him. Hey Dylan, should I start Bailey or Perisic this game week? I'd probably start Bailey this week. Kane and Bowen or Son and Mitrovic? Really good question. I'd go for Son and Mitrovic. I think that's the better option. Best replacement for Patterson, someone to play in Game Week 12. I'd recommend a Wolves defender like Kilman, or maybe Johnny, who's a bit cheaper. And I would also look at Tarkowski as a like-for-like replacement, but they are facing Newcastle away in Game Week 12. And then you have the Crystal Palace defenders like Gay and Anderson. So that's plenty of options there. And also, don't forget the Brighton assets who have Nottingham Forest in Game Week 12. So maybe Lewis Dunk could be right up your alley. McAllister or Trossard or Gross? I think it's between Trossard and Gross, and I'd actually say Trossard. I have a good feeling about him under the new manager. Wolves and Brighton, Williams versus Forest and Palace, Kilman. Wouldn't you go for Williams in this case? Yeah, that is a good point. But the thing is, I don't trust Nottingham Forest at all defensively. But I think Kilman and Wolves have a much better defense. I think I'd have more confidence in them getting the points, actually. I know there's a difference in price as well to consider, and Williams has more attacking threat, but Kilman's been very impressive. When Wolves keep clean sheets, I think in the 2-0 draws they've had so far this season, Kilman has amassed 4 bonus points, and that's exactly what you want from a cheap defender. If I do KDB over Son, then which alternative midfielder for Zaha? I'm not sure what your price is, to be honest, but you could consider Barnes, for example. I would go for Zaha, though. Salah in for De Bruyne? Not now. I would do that in game week 11 or 12. Most likely game week 12. Saka or Bowen? I prefer Saka. Is Luis Diaz to Zaha worth it in game week 10? Definitely. I would probably do it, to be honest, despite Liverpool having some good fixtures from game week 13 onwards. Sorry. Jesus. Voice crack. Is Gaeta a good goalkeeper option? Yes, but I don't think his ceiling is that high. I prefer Nick Pope, for example. Chances of Fofana starting. I think a lot of predicted lineups have him starting, but I wouldn't go there. I think James is enough, and then we can reassess later on. What about Tsimikas? He's a good short-term option, but when Robertson's back, I don't expect him to continue starting. Sufa or Gay? I'd go for Gay. Yeah. I'm not sure where I've seen these Zaha injured rumours, to be honest. I'm not sure where that's come from. So, thank you to everyone for watching at the moment. If you haven't already, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. And let's try to get this video to over 300 likes. And we are very close to 15,000 subscribers, so let's keep on pushing. Thank you for your support, and we'll keep on going through your questions. What's the downgrade for Son to Salah in Game Week 12? That's a good question. I think Tony to Solanke potentially. Solanke faces Bournemouth. Sorry, not Bournemouth. Faces Southampton in Game Week 12, I believe, and Tony faces Chelsea. So I could make a switch like that. Otherwise, it would be something I'm not really comfortable with, like Martinelli to Bailey, for example. So I think Tony to Solanke is something I am considering, or even Broja if he becomes a serious option in the weeks to come. Ramsdale to Gaeta for a -4. Is it good? I wouldn't take a -4 hit for a goalkeeper, so no. I would wait and do it for free in the weeks to come. I wouldn't do it yet. When do you think Bowen will explode? He might not explode, to be fair, but I think now, against Wolves, the ceiling might not be that high on paper. Wolves have been fairly decent defensively, so I'd probably say in the weeks to come, so maybe game weeks 10 or 11. Should I do Bowen to Madison on a free transfer? Yeah, I would do it, to be honest. I think Madison's an upgrade. Raya and Gay or Gaeta and Mings? Has to be Raya and Gay, but I'm not a big fan of Raya and also of Mings, to be fair. Sufa, Martinelli, Bailey, Perisic, Pereira, Cancelo, bench free. I would bench Perisic. Probably, that's Pereira. Yeah, Pereira / Andreas. And I would also bench probably Bailey. Yeah. So I'd start Sufa, Martinelli, and Cancelo. Yeah, Madison is a viable captaincy option, a really good differential, but I don't think I'm going to go there myself. He is my vice-captain currently, but yeah, it's just kind of hard not to say Haaland this week, unfortunately, but it will be different in Game Weeks 11 and, of course, 12. KDB Solanke or Son Tony? Son Tony. Think I'm doing Isak to Solanke, not completely sold, but I don't see any better option under 7 million. Quite a dry area. Yeah, no, that's completely fair enough. There's also Broja potentially, but he is a really big punt, even more so than Solanke, arguably. Okay, thank you for, yeah, so we're seeing more updates on Zaha, so it does seem like he is a doubt for today. I'm going to check and see, because sometimes these rumors circulate and they end up being trolls or, you know, from accounts looking for clout. But if it's from the Express, then that is something to consider. And unfortunately, I will probably go without him and go for Barnes or something like that. So, yeah, let's see. I'm checking Twitter right now. But yeah, I don't see anything at the moment. If you have any links, by the way, then be sure to drop it. It's kind of hard for me to sometimes catch up with Twitter, for example, yeah, when I'm streaming. But yeah, I haven't seen anything on Twitter of Zaha. I won't lie to you. Say Maximan, I wouldn't go for him personally. I would rather go for Martinelli, Rashford. I know they're a bit more expensive, but I don't think they are. I don't think he's the best option. I know he's decent for his price, but not really too convinced. Isak replacements, Ivan Toney's the obvious one, Mitrovic, but then you also have Solanke. I think those are the main ones, really, unless you upgrade completely to Harry Kane. Who'd be your captain? Is Haaland. I can't afford Salah in Game Week 12, so don't buy KDB Wildcard. Well, if you can't afford Salah in Game Week 12, it's not a big issue. You do have free Game Weeks to rectify that and find the funds anyway, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. Just bear that in mind if you really want him in Game Week 12, but things can change, and maybe he still doesn't look too good. Saliba or Gabriel? I'd go for Saliba. Barnes or Madison it is, yes. If the Zaha news is true, yes. Rashford or Madison? I'd go for Madison. Whom to bench? Perisic, Gundogan or Zaha? I'd bench Perisic, to be fair. I can't afford to... Yeah, just answer that question, mate. Martinelli and Jesus still good options for Game Weeks to come? Yes, of course, and I am keeping Martinelli on the wild card, and Jesus is a good option, but he's one yellow card away from suspension, so be careful. Yeah, Jeff, I'm good. What about you? Thank you very much for tuning in. 2.6 million in the bank. What should I do? I mean, your team is looking fine, to be fair, but in the weeks to come, I think the big issue is that you have a lot of City and Arsenal players. You basically have 6. Yeah, that's a big issue. So in the weeks to come, Bikal, I would get rid of Jesus and probably one of Martinelli or Saliba, as well as Kevin De Bruyne potentially, because you will be in a bit of a pickle in Game Week 12. Who should I start, Ward or Pope? I'd go for Pope. Do you believe Salah will outscore Haaland this week? I think there's a chance, to be honest. I'd say yes. If I had Salah, I probably would captain him. But I just don't like the fixtures in the next 2, and that's why I'm not going to go for him on the wild card. Captain KDB or Haaland? I would go for Haaland, but it's a really close toss-up, to be honest. And KDB sometimes just outscores him. It's very close between the two. They're both explosive, and Kevin De Bruyne has the midfield advantage, as I always call it. I'd go for Haaland, though. Thank you, Sheriff, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Wildcarding in 10. Wow, that's an interesting one. Best one-week pun for Isak. Thinking Malpai, Solanke, or Mitrovic. Only Game Week 9. Is it worth a -4 to bring in Harvey Barnes for James Ward-Prowse? Yes, I think it is worth it. But James Ward-Prowse, if he gets a free kick, you never know what he can do. And he's very good for the bonus points when he does get that goal. I would probably go for Solanke from those 3 that you mentioned. Mitrovic is facing Newcastle. So I think Solanke's ceiling is probably the highest. But I don't know. Solanke isn't someone I would trust too much. And Mitrovic has been doing the business all season. So really, really close one. But I think for a one-week punt, looking at the fixture, it probably would be Solanke, I think. Thank you, Everything Zim. Thoughts on the Manchester Derby and the North London Derby? I mean, it's a close one. I think the home teams are probably the favourites, but I think Arsenal Spurs is really close. City United, maybe not so much, but United have been much better recently, I have to say that. And United tend to do well at the Etihad, that's the thing. Everyone always expects City to win, and then United get a result. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised. As for Arsenal Spurs, though, Arsenal tend to win their home games. The same goes for Spurs in their home games against Arsenal. So, yeah, I mean, it should be an interesting one, but you probably would back Arsenal and City to win the games, but you never know in football, and it's a derby. Anything can happen. Start Gross or Walker? I'd start Pascal Gross. Barnes, KDB, or Son, Zaha? It's a close one, but I'd say Son, Zaha, assuming that Zaha is fit, of course. We're seeing a lot of rumours flying around, but I'm not sure where they're coming from. Is Clickbait Dylan says Palace have 3 injury doubts, but Zaha isn't one of them. Has he played during the international break? Yeah, I'm not sure. It probably is, to be honest. And, you know, like I said, rumours spread like wildfire, especially on Twitter. So, yeah, I haven't seen anything, so I'm not really going to panic, and I'm not going to get rid of Zaha, to be honest, because he's someone I really want in the long term. So unless I see a reliable source saying he's out, he's going to be staying in my team. Salah or Son on a wild card? Right now, I'd go for Son, and then you can look to get Salah later on. Start Cucurella or Walker? I believe Cucurella is injured, so I'd probably go for Walker. I'm captaining Salah. What do you think? Honestly, if I had him, I probably would do the same thing as you, mate. Who to start? Martinelli, Emerson, Andreas. I'd go for Martinelli. That's a good wildcard team, Yazid, to be honest. I mean, I've basically got an identical team as well. A lot of us will. The only key differences really are Raya, Mark Gay, but that's kind of identical, and Nico Williams. I think it's a solid draft. Tony or Mitrovic? Mitrovic. If you're looking at the fixtures and looking long term, it has to be. Son and Mitrovic or Kane and Zaha? That's a really close one. I mean, I'd probably go for Son and Mitrovic, but it's literally 51-49, if anything. Start Bailey or Martinelli? I would start Martinelli. Would you start Ward over Pope if you have Trippier Mitrovic? I'd still start Pope, to be honest. It's just a ceiling. I don't expect Leicester to keep a clean sheet. I would go for Nick Pope. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm going to check the link now and see what's happening. Yeah. Crystal Palace suffered triple injury setback amid Wilfried Zaha doubts ahead of Chelsea clash. And then, yeah, it probably is clickbait, isn't it? Yeah, we can go through this just to alleviate the concerns that people have because, you know, people do jump the gun, you could say. So if we check this, so yeah, they basically go on to say, let me try find the exact quote on Zaha. So yeah, so it's literally clickbait. It literally says here, for their opponents, Crystal Palace, they'll have players returning from injury, but 3 remain sidelined for this fixture, and one of the trio will not be Wilfried Zaha. It's literally all clickbait. They know, especially FPL managers at this time, will be clicking on it and being worried and giving them traction. So do not pay attention to all of this. Zaha's fine, and there are no issues here. So thank you, Marco, for the link. I appreciate it, because honestly, I was struggling to find it, but as you can see, it's nothing to worry about. So there you go. I appreciate it. Start Saliba or Emerson? I'd start Emerson this week just in case he starts. Awani or Brennan Johnson are good options for enabler. I don't think so at the moment. I think Awani is probably my preference. I think he's the better goal scorer, but yeah, I wouldn't go for an Nottingham Forest attacker or player at this moment in time apart from Nico Williams. Start 1, Ericsson or Onana for this game week only. Probably Onana. I'm not really backing any of them to get attacking returns as such. Trippier or Zaha? To start, I'd probably go for Trippier. I have Cucurella and Isak on the bench with no one playing this game week. Who to start, Andreas or Nico Williams? Andreas Pereira for me. Kane and Foden, Rodrigo or Tony and Son? Tony and Son. Bernardo, Madison or Gundogan and Barnes? Gundogan and Barnes? I mean, it's a really, really close one. I mean, when you break it down, actually, I'd go for Bernardo and Madison. I changed my mind there. Lodi or Tsimikas? Tsimikas, but he's a short-term option. He's not someone you want to have beyond this game week, really. Depending on when Robertson returns, of course. All right, we're going to go back to my FPL team so you can all see what I'm doing here. So Maximan, Bailey or Fofana, pick one. To start, it probably has to be Saint-Maximin, and I'd put Bailey first on the bench. You think Emerson starts for West Ham? Not sure, to be honest, but if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say yes. But honestly, Cresswell is first choice, and it just depends really on David Moyes' mindset. Start 1, Perisic, Kyle Walker-Peters or Paqueta? Probably Perisic out of those 3. Would you take a -4 to replace Isak and avoid playing Andreas? I have double Newcastle defence and playing Mitrovic already. If the -4 is to Tony, then I think it's worthwhile because Tony has good long-term fixtures and I think he's a better option than Isak anyway, who could be out for up to a month. So I would do a -4. No, it's not a bad idea to play Soufal. I think a clean sheet is quite likely. It could be a 0-0. If anything, if there's any game that's a 0-0 this week, I think it's Wolves-West Ham. Let's wait and see though. I don't know why I am patient with Brian Mbeumo. To be fair, when Brentford play a back 3 and a front 2, Mbeumo does benefit from that, but I do prefer other options, to be honest. And Mitrovic for literally only 0.9 million more, something like that, is just a far better option. So just any solid midfielder for 6.2 or less. You'll probably look at Pascal Gross and potentially Saint-Maximin if he still is 6.2, by the way. Isak to Solanke or Kulusevski to Zaha this week? This week, it'd be Isak to Solanke. But in the long term, Kulusevski to Zaha is the better move. Emerson's chances of starting go up when they play it with a back 3. Cresswell left centre back, yep, agreed. And West Ham do kind of change about from time to time. But when it's a back 4, it's going to be Cresswell and that's it. Bowen or Zaha for this game week? I'd go for Bowen this week. Welcome, Nabil. Thoughts on this wildcard? A few different picks there with Castagna, Fabianski. I do like this team. I wouldn't go for Bowen, though, honestly. I'd go for Zaha. I know he's facing Chelsea, but he is just a better option to have from the get-go. So I would go for Zaha over Bowen. The rest is completely fine, and ideally I would go for Andreas over Reed. You have the money in the bank for that, but I'm guessing you're trying to save up a little bit to get someone like Salah in for Kevin De Bruyne, so that's completely understandable. But I would do Andreas in for Reed, and I would also go for Zaha in for Bowen, and also that helps you get the money in the bank to get Salah in for Kevin De Bruyne. Isak replacement in Boomer or Solanke. I'd go for Solanke out of those two, but not a huge fan of either. Will Saint-Maximin play? I believe so, but I can't tell you that with confidence. And the problem with Saint-Maximin is injuries. Even if he's fit now, when will he get injured again? Your team's good enough, to be honest. Just Perisic, I'm not too sure about him this week, but he's a good option long term. And I would try to get rid of Edison, I think, in the weeks to come. And you've also got Walker. You've got no Haaland. Oh no, you got Haaland there. So you've got triple up in City, and you've got 2 Arsenal players, unless I'm missing somebody. Yeah, so I would get rid of Edison and probably Walker in the weeks to come. Need your opinion. Don't know who to start off for Fana and Emerson. I probably would go for Emerson, actually, but the issue is if he comes on as a substitute. But otherwise, if he starts, I back West Ham more so to get the clean sheet than Chelsea this week. Is Madison a shout for the captaincy? Yes, he is. Perisic or Trippier on the wildcard? Trippier. Thoughts on this team, please, says Mark. I'm not a big fan of Leicester defensively, and until I see an improvement, I wouldn't go for Justin personally. As for Bowen, once again, I'd go for Zaha. I mean, you've got Zaha, to be fair, that's fair enough. I just don't trust Bowen. I know he's got the fixtures and he could turn things around, but he's only got 1 shot on target all season, which is absolutely awful. Your front three is amazing. I like it. Your defense is also very good. But also consider Game Week 12, and Soufal plays Liverpool, so that could be an issue, but it's a really good team. I would just probably change Bowen and potentially Justin, but I also recognise that, especially in the case of Justin, he's a good differential. Rashford as captain? Nah, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't captain him. Maupay or Solanke? I'd go for Solanke, but Maupay has been impressive since joining Everton, but yeah, I mean, I'd probably still go for Solanke for the fixtures. Sanchez or Ward goalkeeper? In that case, I would go for Ward this week. Will Yuri Tielemans steal Madison's spotlight this week as everyone is not watching him? I still think Madison's the better option, and he's so consistent. And Tielemans is on penalties, especially when Vardy's not on the pitch, but I think Madison... I mean, why not both of them? I think both of them could do a really good job at the same time, to be fair. Should I do a -4 to get in Tony and Madison for Isak and Bowen? I would, to be honest, yeah. I think it's worth it. How nervous are you about today, Dylan? I mean, at the moment, I'm not that nervous, and maybe it kind of stems to the home advantage that these teams have in the derbies, and typically you would expect Arsenal to win, but of course, if you look at the gap between the two teams, they're pretty much very similar level, and Spurs are right up there, only 1 point behind top, without playing well, and Arsenal have been playing, well in every single game, even against United, but... Look, I still think Arsenal have a good chance of winning the game. It just depends, really, on the tactical setup and how naive they are. Because against United, I think the loss really was a result of Arsenal just playing the high line in moments where they didn't need to. Vardy or Tony? Tony. It has to be Tony. I don't recommend spending that much money on a Leicester asset. And you've got Madison, for around 7.9 million. And not only that, you've got Barnes at 6.9. So I would rather go for them. Welcome, Brandon. Who do I play? Soufal, Bernardo Silva. I'd probably play Bernardo Silva because of the upside, but Soufal is more likely to return, so to speak, with a clean sheet. But yeah, you do have a bit of a benching headache there, but I would favour Bernardo Silva slightly. Open Ward or Raya and Gaeta? Open Ward. You don't need 2 4.5 million options, in my opinion. Yeah, we went through the Zaha news already. It's Football London. I will try to get the link. I think I've got it here. So, yeah, just bear with me for a second. All right, so there you go. I'm going to put it in the chat. So, yeah, for those of you that aren't aware, there is kind of a rumour flying around of Zaha being injured, but it all stems from this article, and it literally explicitly says that Zaha isn't injured. So, yeah, it's all for clout. Webster over Kilman as cover for Trippier. I mean... yeah, that's fair enough. I wouldn't do that, though. If you have Pope as well, you don't necessarily need that double up, but maybe you don't have him. So in that case, that's fine. But I would still go for Kilman. Midfielder under 8.8 million, Madison. And if not, you've got Zaha as well for the long term. Sanchez, Raya, or Gaeta? I'd go for Gaeta from those three. West Ham will explode tonight. I have a feeling Bowen and Antonio will show up. It's possible, but Wolves have been very solid defensively, and I think they have the least goals conceded so far this season. Maybe that was up until the City game, but yeah, I think Wolves are a decent defence, and I don't see West Ham, or even Wolves for that matter, smashing the other team. But you could be right. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. Besides Zaha, Madison, under 8.8 million, I'd say Saka, but the problem is the Game Week 12 blank, and in that case, you probably want to look elsewhere, and I would consider someone like Harvey Barnes. Yes, I'm on the wildcard. Tony captain or Haaland? I wouldn't captain Tony. I think Bournemouth are a bit better than people give them credit for. Like I said, they do pretty well against the non-top 6 opposition, so yeah, I would go for Haaland, to be honest, from those two. Let's keep smashing the like button, by the way. I appreciate everyone tuning in, and what happened earlier was kind of funny. You know, you got to laugh it off. I mean, I still can't get over that. That's going to be something we're going to talk about in future streams as well. The mic was off, and it basically started working again when I muted it. Makes sense of that. Salah, Kane, Son, or KDB? I mean, look, in isolation, Kevin De Bruyne and Kane for me are the best premiums, but you also have to think about which structure you prefer. So I'm not sure, you know, what your thoughts are on that. I prefer having, if possible, one premium midfielder and one premium forward. So that's why I would go for either Kevin De Bruyne or Son right now. And once we see a bit more from Liverpool in Game Week 12, that's when we can start to bring Salah back in. Pickford or Fabianski over Pope? I'd go for Pickford, actually. He's a bit... Yeah, I'd probably go for Pickford. It's a close one, but that would be my guess there. Yeah. Mo Salah or Haaland captain? I'd go for Salah this week. Son, KDB or Salah? Once again, it's Kevin De Bruyne or Son. It's completely up to you there. Thank you, Lungani. I appreciate it. Bench Isak for Emerson, Palmieri, or sell to Solanke for a -4? I'd probably bench him for Emerson, Palmieri. If it was a -4 to Tony, I'd be a bit more inclined, but for Solanke, I'm not too sure. Martinelli for Rodrigo or Aronson or Sinistera? I mean, I would keep Martinelli personally, but I would go to Sinistera, to be honest. Højbjerg shout, not in FPL. In UCL Fantasy, maybe, but not in FPL. What about Foden? He's a good option around that price, but honestly, you've got Madison, you've got Zaha, you've got Saka. I think there are better options as well. 1 second. Haaland or KDB? I'd go for Haaland, but Kevin De Bruyne is not a bad shout this week. I think they could score a similar amount of points there. Salah, Kane, and Haaland, what do you say? I mean, as a freemium draft, that looks really good, of course, but what's the balance in the rest of your team? That would be my main concern. Thank you, Lee Clements. I appreciate it. Thoughts on going with Salah this week, transfer to KDB next week, then Son following the next week due to the FDR? I'm not a huge fan of jumping between premiums, but now does seem like a good time to do it. And I think Kevin De Bruyne has the highest ceiling over the next two, but then it changes in Game Week 11, and that's when you can get Son in, captain him, and then around Game Week 13 bring Salah. So really good case that you say, and to be honest, I don't really see that as a problem. And as you say, actually, you get rid of Son in Game Week 12 because he faces United. That's completely fine. You also have to think about the captaincy, and in Game Weeks 11 and 12, we probably won't be captaining Haaland, so makes complete sense. Start one, Pereira or Nico Williams? I'd go for Pereira. Van Dijk on set piece and clean sheet? I think it's possible. I think he scored against Brighton before. Yeah, it's possible. It's just Liverpool haven't really shown enough this season to have confidence in them defensively. Son, KDB for this week? Probably Kevin De Bruyne. I brought in Watkins for... I'm guessing that's Isak instead of Tony and Solanke. Am I crazy? No, you're not. He's got some good fixtures as well. But I would have gone for Tony personally. But you never know. Pope or Raya? Pope. KDB, Gaeta or Son, Pope? I have Trippier. I'd go for Son and Pope still. Score prediction, Fulham versus Newcastle. Let me bring up my predictions. I think I did them several weeks ago now, actually. So yeah, my prediction actually was a 1-1. I'm not sure if I'm going to change that, but I think both teams will score. And I've got double Newcastle defence, but just kind of hoping for some saves from Pope and also an attack and return potentially from Trippier. But of course, that's easier said than done. What made you choose Son over Kane? It's because of the structure. I want to have a midfielder, a premium midfielder that I can switch to. You know, you've got Kevin De Bruyne, you've got Salah, and in the forward line, I do like Kane a lot, of course, but not a big fan of that structure. And you can cover Kane with someone like Tony, who's only, I think, 3 points off him so far this season. Jesus or Tony, I'd go to Tony. What about Jesus? He's still a good option, but he's 1 yellow card away from suspension, and he's got poor fixtures and a blank in 12. So, yeah. I don't have any player from Liverpool. That's fair enough. And on a wild card, I probably wouldn't go for them myself yet. But the important thing is leaving the opportunity to get to these assets in Game Week 12 or 13. But of course, you know, it's just being flexible. That's the main thing. Also, captaining Madison. I mean, it's a good week to do it, you could say. I think Haaland is the best captaincy option this week, apart from perhaps Salah. But yeah, I think Madison would be in my top 5 captaincy options this week. It's just Leicester are so inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to get from them. Gay or put 0.2 extra for Anderson. If you can make a good upgrade with the extra 0.2, then just go for Gay. But otherwise, like in my case, I would go for Anderson if you can. I think he is marginally better, but is he worth 0.2 million more? I mean, arguably he isn't, but I have more confidence in Anderson getting bonus points and also attacking returns, although they're quite similar in that regard too. Tsimikas, Kilman or Anderson for Game Week 9? For Game Week 9, I'd go for Tsimikas. Southampton versus City is always low scoring. Feel like Son is a better option. Yeah, Southampton, that's a good point. Southampton tend to turn up against City, but I think it could be a bit different this season with Haaland, and I could see him scoring with a Kevin De Bruyne assist, to be fair, but that's a really good point that isn't really often mentioned. Hi Dylan, Jesus or Tony? Tony. Any thoughts on City, Arsenal and United fixtures turn in Game Week 13? I mean, that's why I'm looking to bring in someone like Saliba from Game Week 13 onwards, and with City, I mean, Kevin De Bruyne could be right back in the agenda, to be fair, after the blank. And as for United, that's where we can start to look at Dalot as our cheap defender and also Rashford in the midfield. So that's when things can definitely change. And those are the assets I would really highlight on top of the usual Cancelo, Martinelli and Erling Haaland. Isak replacement, I would go for Tony, but there's also Solanke, for example, especially if it allows you to make an upgrade. My midfield is Martinelli, Sinistera, Bailey, De Bruyne. That's a good midfield. I'm not a big fan of Bailey and starting him week in, week out, but the rest looks pretty good. Mo price down yet. He went down to 12.8 million, so it makes it a bit easier to get him in the weeks to come. Do you think Son outscores KDB this week? I'm not sure, to be honest. I think it's very close. If I had to pick one, it would be De Bruyne. Is it too risky captaining Saka? I wouldn't captain an Arsenal player or even a Tottenham player potentially, apart from Kane this week. Start Perisic, Emerson or Andreas Pereira? I'd start Emerson Palmieri. 2 or more goals for Tony this week? I think 1 goal and maybe some bonus points. I don't think 2, but who knows? Sufa on the wild card, he's a good option, but in Game Week 12 he does play Liverpool. Yeah, fair enough, rock and roll. Barnes or Martinelli on the wild card? I am considering something very similar. I am going for Martinelli right now because I already have Barnes and also I have money tied up in Martinelli. I'm actually going to put a poll out and I'll see what you guys think. So which duo do you prefer? And it does include Martinelli versus Barnes, so it could help you with your decision. So Gay and Barnes or Anderson and Martinelli. It will be very interesting to see what people say. Maybe people will just go for the typical Martinelli, but let's see. Yep, Game Week 9, here we go. Hi Dylan, do you think Kepa will play? That's a really good point. I wouldn't risk it with Kepa because if he doesn't start, you've got Ward starting and that's not ideal. So for me personally, I would go for someone like Nick Pope, someone you can really trust. But then again, you know, it's a goalkeeper position. It's not the end of the world and you're not going to lose out on too many points either way. But I would just keep it safe, have a set and forget goalkeeper and just go for someone like Pope or Gaeta or even Pickford potentially. Will Odegaard start? I believe so. He was training yesterday, and I think he's been training for, you know, the whole week. Obviously, he played for Denmark as well. Norway. Jesus Christ, you can tell I haven't had any sleep. Thoughts on Tsimikas? Good short-term punt, nothing more than that. I wouldn't go from long-term. Do you think Haaland will score? Yes. I don't think he'll score a hat-trick or anything, but I could see him scoring 1 or 2 goals. Hey Dylan, how are you? It's been a while since you last went live. Yeah, it's been a few weeks. Yeah, I mean, it's been good. Just check the beginning of the stream if you want to laugh a little bit. But yeah, Ward or Iverson? I mean, there's not really much difference. I'd go for Ward because I think Brendan Rodgers is still going to back him. His comments yesterday does suggest that. But, you know, if you need the extra 0.1 million, just go for Iverson. Son versus Arsenal isn't an easy game. True, but he has a really good record against Arsenal anyway. I know Arsenal are better this time round, but I think Son's in great form. You know, in both games in the international break he scored. He scored a hat-trick, of course, in Game Week 8. So, yeah, I think Son is still... He's got a good chance of a return, I think. Just not high ceiling. Thoughts on captaining Madison? He's probably one of my top 5 options for the captaincy, but yeah, I just wouldn't go there over Haaland. Why Son and not Kane? Structure, which I discussed in my Wildcard team video. Yeah, Partey is back for the North London derby. He's in the squad anyway, same with Zinchenko and all the others, but let's wait and see if he actually starts. Roll with Isak and start Kochap, only 0.2 million in the bank. I'd actually just make the transfer if you can, Tiger, and I'd go to Ivan Toney if you can. Best budget goalkeeper combination. I would just go for one goalkeeper and then someone like Iverson or Ward as your second. But if you really want 2 budget goalkeepers, then I would go for Gaeta and potentially Pickford. That would be my kind of bet there. Do you think Zaha can score against Chelsea? Of course he can, but I think Palace tend to struggle against Chelsea if you look at the record, and that's kind of the top 6 team they struggle against the most. So, yeah, I think he can score. Of course he can, but I think Chelsea will win the game. Pablo Fornals for future. I mean, look, he's a decent option at that price, but I still wouldn't go there personally. I don't want to be boring, but that's just my opinion on it. Yeah, Kepa will play this week, but what about in the long term? That's my issue, because then you would need Ward to come in the future weeks, and that's not ideal. Thank you, Aina. Thank you, Chelsea Blues. Good to see you. Leicester fan here, and Barnes hasn't been that great. Yeah, he hasn't. He started, well, at least he had a good pre-season, and he looked promising, but once again, it fell flat. I actually started the season last season with him, and it just didn't turn out well. Yeah, Madison is just the one to go to. Thank you, Marius, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Patterson to Tsimikas and bench Justin or play him and roll. I like Tsimikas a lot as a 1-week punt, but when Robertson returns, you're not really going to get... you might have to transfer Tsimikas out, especially with Game Week 12 in mind, when you need as many players as you can get. So I would personally avoid as many of these kind of 1-week punts as you can, and I would just play Justin, to be honest, and I would roll. Do you think Salah will score? I believe so. He's got a good record against Brighton at home. Why not Madison as a captain? Because I think Haaland will score more points. It's really as simple as that. If you back Madison to score more points, then go for it. I think he's a good choice this week, but I'm going for Haaland. Is Andreas less offensive now after Willian joined the team? I think it's far too early to say that. We've only seen 1 game of that happening. And Andres Pereira is still on set pieces and he can still do something. And remember, he's only 4.6 million. So, anything you can get is a bonus, in my opinion. I mean, yeah. The thing is, though, do you expect Leicester to get a clean sheet? No. So I think Pope is just a better option. Iverson playing, based on Roger's comments, you'd probably say no, but I can't tell you that for sure. Kane a captaincy shout? Of course he is. He's got a great record against Arsenal, 13 goals in 15 Premier League games. Yes, and I think the reason why Rodgers isn't sacked is because they just can't afford to do it. Ward or Pope? I'd go for Pope. Pascal Gross or Andres Pereira for the starting 11. I'd probably go for Andres Pereira just for the fixture. But apparently Broja does not start today. Thank you, Mark. I don't actually see that, so thank you. Yeah, I'm guessing this is a reliable account. Yeah, it looks like it is. So yeah, Broja does not start, so it could be Aubameyang. Yeah, so no Broja. For those of you considering the punt for Broja, just go for Solanke instead at the same price. So thank you, Marco, once again. Jacques is a good cheaper option, but I am scared because he has a tendency to lose his head and get red card. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but he hasn't shown any signs of that this season so far, but in a derby, anything can happen. The thing is with Xhaka, yes, he's doing well for his price, but do you want to have an Arsenal player with Game Week 12 around the corner? And also, you would rather have other Arsenal players when the time comes from Game Weeks 13 to 16. So really, I wouldn't go for Xhaka still. I'm afraid of letting Salah go now and can't afford getting him back. Well, he's already gone down in price. He's 12.8 million. It's not a big deal. I think you can easily find, let's say if you go to De Bruyne or Son, you can find that extra million that you need to go to Salah. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Tony or Haaland captain? I'd go for Haaland. Kane or Haaland captain? Probably go for Haaland in the end. Thank you, Moned. Thank you. Thoughts on Zaha, Madison, Salah, Martinelli, Foden on a wildcard? It's a great midfield. I'm just a bit worried about your attack then. Do you have 2 forwards instead? It's not the end of the world, to be fair, but I would try to have 3 forwards if you can. Tony or Haaland captain? Haaland. Thoughts on captaining Madison? It's a good punt. I prefer Haaland, as you can tell, but I think it's a really good punt, to be fair. It's just I don't have enough confidence in Leicester. I know Madison's doing well, irrespective of how poor Leicester have been, but I just don't have enough confidence in the team to captain one of their players, even if they're as good as Madison. That's my answer, really. First bench, McAllister or Andreas? Probably Andreas. Start two of Trippier, Zaha, Andreas, Bailey. I would start Zaha and Trippier. I know the fixtures aren't really there. I think Fulham's quite tough for Newcastle, but I would go for those two. Loved your thoughts on Argentina. Any other thoughts on international break? I mean, I actually enjoy the international break, to be honest. That's the thing, but it's not going to be the same for everyone, especially England fans and those in the Euros and all of that. So, you know, I do understand that. All right, apologies for that. Just making sure delivery arrived. It's all good. We are here. We are back. All right, so play Ward or Gaeta? I'd play Ward out of those two. Do you think I should sell Jesus now or in game week 12? I would sell him now because he's one yellow card away from suspension. It's possible that he gets yellow against Spurs with the nature of the game and how feisty it can be. And he's facing Liverpool next, so I would do it now. And yeah, you can wildcard him back in game week 13. That's really good. And that's something that can separate you from the rest, Stephanie. So it looks really good. Also, Rodrigo of Leeds. I mean, he started the season like a house on fire, and I think he is a good option. And he's someone that can start to enter our thoughts once again. And Leeds have some good games on the horizon as well. Is Luis Diaz starting? I think that's the big issue. So we don't know what the third Liverpool forward will be, but I think Diaz will start. So Diaz, Salah, and then it's between Firmino or Nunez to start. And also Jota, to be fair, who does deserve more game time. I don't think Varane and Martinez will give Haaland a sniff at goal. That's fair enough. You have to back your own gut and your own decision-making. I think Haaland will still get opportunities, and City's quality will show through. Even if they drop points in the game, even lose, I still think they'll score. I don't see United keeping them out. Do I take a -4 hit to get Madison and James in for KDB and Saliba? A -4 hit to get rid of Kevin De Bruyne? I can't suggest that, no. Jesus out, Tony in? I would do it personally, Bacon. Jesus has he obviously has the quality to do well in these big games, but I would do it. Will Kai Havertz get minutes on the Potter? I believe he will, and he actually looked pretty good in the international break, but I mean, I just wouldn't go from an FPL. It's as simple as that. Gaeta, Raya, Pickford for wildcard 9. Other goalkeepers, Ward. I'd go for Gaeta. Hi, Dylan. Would you do Saliba to James for a -4? From -4 hit? With Game Week 12 in mind, yes, I would, but I wouldn't expect it to really pay off in Game Week 9 in particular. Is it worthwhile to play the wildcard next game week given the long break might impact player performances and injuries? This is the thing, though. The reason why I like playing the wildcard this week is because of the international break. We get the information, you know, what could happen. And you also set yourself up well, not just for Game Weeks 10 and onwards, but also Game Week 9. So it just depends on how your team is set up. If you're happy with how your team is now, you don't need to wildcard. And I was kind of in a similar position in Game Week 8, and that's why I didn't play the chip then. So that's completely fair enough. And look, there's no set formula. You can, you know, play the wildcard in a different game week and benefit more so. You will know your team better than I do. But yeah, I think you make a good point. You know, after an international break, things can happen in the week just after. So that's a really good point that you make, and something that I haven't really mentioned, and I don't think many people have. So that is a good point. I'm desperately trying to climb ranks. Should I take a punt and captain Madison? The thing is, though, look, I don't want to put you off it, and that's a really good suggestion. I think you have to start chasing these differential captains. Like Game Week 11 as well, for example, you can go for Son or Kane over Haaland. That's another great opportunity, but that will be a bit more popular. So captaining Madison right now is a great way to do it, but also think about the opposite. You know, if Haaland does really well and Madison not so much, then you will actually be further behind. So it can go both ways, but it's a really good opportunity for you. I do agree. I'm planning to get Zaha and Madison to replace Salah. Who to get first? Who to get first? Madison. And then you can get Zaha later because of the fixture. Also, Salah or Haaland captain? I would go for Salah this week personally. Rodrigo or Zaha? Still Zaha for me long term. What do you think of Fofana? He's a decent option. Of course, he's only 4.4, but I'd rather go for a Crystal Palace defender. And James is enough coverage for Chelsea, in my opinion. Williams, Salah, Foden, 4.3 million striker, or KDB, James, Tony, Andreas. The second quartet. So KDB, James, Tony, Andreas, Sudindra. That's what I would go for. Is Thiago a good long-term option? He's a great player, but in FPL, he's another one I wouldn't consider. Maybe in UCL Fantasy, although he's still not the greatest there. In FPL, I can't recommend him. I think most know already, but Kepa starts, yeah. I think Mendy is injured. Yeah, exactly. It's just Kepa. I know some people are going to go for him on the wild card, and he could be a nice goalkeeper in the weeks to come, but will he be the main goalkeeper when Mendy returns? I'm just not too sure. I know he started the first game for Graham Potter in the Champions League, but let's wait and see. Start Bailey or Perisic? It's a really close one. I'd probably say Bailey for the fixture, but it's really close. Perisic to James or Jesus to Mitrovic Solanke? Right now, it'd be Jesus to Mitrovic, but I mean, that could backfire either way. Yeah, I'd probably say... You know what? Looking at this fixture, I know I'm thinking a lot about the yellow card, the Gameweek 12 blank, but I will do Perisic to James, and then in the next week, potentially, you can do Jesus to Mitrovic. Start Soufal over Zaha. I mean, that's not a bad shout. I think they have a good chance of a clean sheet. I would still start Zaha because of his ceiling, but that's a good choice. Is Ward-Prowse a good punt? Yes, but you're mainly relying on attack and returns, to be honest. Bowen to captain? No. He's got one shot on target all season. I can't recommend captaining him, honestly, mate. If you have a good feeling about him, go for it, but I just can't recommend it. Best defenders under 5.5 million. Trippier is the obvious one, and then I would look at Saliba, but of course he blanks in Gameweek 12, but I think those are the two best, and then you're looking at the likes of Anderson or Gay, and I would also look at Kilman. I think Wolves' assets are very underrated, at least the defenders, of course. Why Son over Kevin? Just to kind of prevent transfers being booked in, really, because I would love Kevin De Bruyne for the next two potentially, but then I'd probably get Son in, and what I like about Son is the captaincy option he gives me in Game Week 11 over Haaland, and that's a way for me to make up rank, and also his ownership is great. It's only, I think, 11% now. Justin and Gaeta or Raya and Gay? Probably Justin and Gaeta. Do you think Bailey's a good pick this week against Leeds? I think he's a decent pick, not great, but I think he's a good one for that price. All right, we're going to end the poll now, and overwhelmingly, 70% of you went for Anderson and Martinelli. Is Gomez a good choice? I don't think so now, because Matip is available and Kanate has returned to training, so not for me. Is Walker set to start? I mean, I don't know if he's going to start, because Sergio Gomez has been pretty good, and I think he played as a right winger, actually, during the international break for the Spain under-21s, but it's just really down to Sergio Gomez versus Walker. Cancelo's going to start for sure. Still funny how you got Zaha, Mitrovic, James and Zaha, yeah, when they face each other. Yeah, of course, there's going to be blanks from some of these players, but I'm not going to try to be too clever and, you know, start Andreas or something like that over these options, to be honest. And also, he would be another clash anyway. Hey, do I bench boost with Gaeta, James Ward-Prowse, Nico and Bailey? No, I wouldn't bench boost this week, no. Jose Sarr to save Burn penalty tonight? Oh my god, the scenes if that happens. It's possible. Play Luis Diaz or Martinelli? I'd play Diaz. Gross to Madison and Jesus to Tony for a -4? Yep, I would do it. It could backfire with Jesus in particular, but I would do it. Perisic to James for a -4? For a hit, no. I don't think I'd do it for a hit. Also Akanji, as John Stones is injured. Decent option, to be fair, and he's got a bit of aerial prowess, but I just don't know, because you've got Laporte as well, who could be back, I think, in a month's time, potentially. Obviously, he's kind of a far-fetched option anyway. I mean, Akanji, I think, should be fairly nailed on in the next few weeks, but you never know with City, you know? You never know what they can come up with. But for the time being, as a short-term solution, I think Akanji's decent, yeah. Worth doing Kane and Saka to Solanke and Mo Salah? No. I think Kane and Saka's the better duo. Honestly, I wouldn't do that. What do you think about Diaz? Decent option, but not the best. I think you can get Madison and Zaha for a cheaper price, and they have better fixtures, so I wouldn't go for him. Which goalkeeper should I start? I would go for Ward this week. Best captain, KDB, Haaland, Tony. I would go for either KDB or Haaland, and for me personally, it would be Haaland. Just saw the start of your video. Your mic was muted, and you were talking to yourself for a few minutes. Yeah. And do you know what happened? Do you know how I solved the problem? By muting my mic. I muted my mic, and that unmuted it. I don't know what happened there. Something I need to look at after the stream. Hi Dylan, do I do Bowen to Madison or roll to have 2 free transfers to get Salah back for Game Week 12? I will do Bowen to Madison, mate. You know, you've still got a few weeks before Game Week 12 anyway, so just do Bowen to Madison in my opinion. Obviously, if you back Bowen to Hall, you don't need to do it, but I would do it personally. Start Ward or Pope? I mean, you can see my answer based on my team selection. I would go for Pope, honestly. Thoughts on Sterling? He's someone I'm keeping an eye on, and he could be a great option, especially if you want to get the likes of Trent in the back line. But I still prefer Son for the extra million or so. You've also got Kevin De Bruyne and Salah. I think they are better options regardless. I got a midfield of Zaha, Madison, Sterling, Diaz. It's a good midfield, to be fair. It's a really solid midfield. And if you've got a good attack and defence to boot, then, you know, no issues with that whatsoever, to be fair. Captain Madison over Haaland. I think it's a good punt, but I'm still going for Haaland because I personally believe he's going to score more points. But honestly, if you have a good feeling about Madison, go for it. The fixture's there. He's been fantastic all season. I don't think he's had multiple attacking returns in a game so far this campaign, but that could change in Game Week 9. Jesus to Tony or roll the transfer? That's a good question. I probably would do the transfer, but there's nothing wrong with rolling it. Nothing wrong. For the next 4 game weeks, who do you prefer? Tony, Wilson, Solanke? Tony. De Bruyne to Bruno Fernandes to free some cash? No, I would just have De Bruyne. It's a good suggestion, and look, Bruno has been better this season, at least his overall performances, but he hasn't been that impressive FPL-wise. Barnes and Callum Wilson for a -4, or just transfer Madison? I would just transfer Madison personally, Isaac, but the -4 looks decent. Alright, if you have any more questions, then be sure to let me know. And let's keep on smashing the like button. If I've answered your question or you're enjoying the content, then be sure to give this video a thumbs up to show your support. And we are getting ever closer to 15,000 subscribers. So thank you very much to everyone. And yeah, we are now just under 200 subscribers away. And as you can probably tell throughout the whole stream, my voice is gone as always. I don't know what I don't know what I can do at this point, but there you go. Still just about holding on, and we've got under an hour left for the deadline. So yeah, still plenty of time. Thank you, Henry. Yeah, once again, Nabil, best defenders under 5.5 million, Trippier and Saliba, and a few others to mention are Kilman and a Crystal Palace defender like Anderson. Barnes and Callum Wilson. Oh yeah, I just read that. So yeah, we're all caught up now. So yeah, if you've got any more questions, then let me know. I'm going to also show you a few other screens that I haven't shown you before. So in terms of price rises, Mitrovic, it looks like he's going to go up to 7 million tonight. If not, it could happen in the next few days. You've also got a few others like Iverson who could go up to 4 million. And we had a few price rises overnight, such as Zaha, who's now 7.3. And Salah was the big one who went down to 12.8. So that was a big one. In terms of the fixture ticker, Fulham are top with Crystal Palace second and Leicester third. That's why I keep on mentioning Zaha, Madison, who for me are 2 of the best midfielders to get. Not only on a wildcard, but also using free transfers. And also Bournemouth are right up there. So Solanke is becoming a more popular option by the minute. Man City are bottom of the fixture ticker and Arsenal in the bottom 4. And then you've got other popular teams in terms of FPL assets, such as Brighton, who are second last in this fixture ticker. So as you can see, there are some big fixture swings to think about. But if we also look at Game Week 16, which obviously is the last week before the World Cup, this is why Solanke is so popular, or at least he's becoming more popular. Bournemouth are top between Game Weeks 9 and 16 in the fixture ticker. You've got Palace there, West Ham, Fulham, Leicester, and Liverpool. So things definitely do change. And Arsenal, look at them, they're at the bottom. So things are definitely going to change, maybe for the better. The template will start to break up a little bit, and that could be good to see. And it's a good chance for us to make up some ground. Here is the predicted points. Haaland is top with 7.7. De Bruyne is second with 6.9. Then you've got Salah, Tsimikas, and Foden completing the top 5. So the algorithm is favouring the City and Liverpool assets. You've got Cancelo, Trent, Madison, Wilson, and Maupay there completing the top 10. And I do agree, no Arsenal Spurs players because the ceiling probably low. You don't know what you're going to get. It could be a 2-2 draw. It could be a win either way. You just don't know what's going to happen in the North London derby. So yeah, should be a fascinating contest. The early kickoff in just a couple of hours' time. But yeah, I do agree with the algorithm in that regard. And then if we look at the big comparison, a lot of people have asked me today, why are you going for Son over De Bruyne? One of the main reasons is the differential captaincy in Game Week 11. Son's ownership is relatively low. He's in great form now, scoring a hat-trick against Leicester, who are the worst team, and he's not going to play against them every single week. But he carried over that form for South Korea, and he should probably take free kicks, to be honest. And I think he scored 1 free kick from 5 attempts for Spurs. I don't know why Kane keeps hogging them up, but you never know. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on the Son Kevin De Bruyne debate. I personally think De Bruyne is the better option, but with the Game Week 12 blank in mind, the Game Week 11 fixture against Liverpool, where I want to captain a Spurs asset instead, that's why I'm going for Son at the moment. But arguably, you could go for De Bruyne, then switch in Game Week 11. So there's always kind of a solution to these problems. 1, get in Solanke for Isak. 2, get in Tony and downgrade someone for a -4. Free roll the transfer. What do you think? It really depends, because if you get Solanke in for Isak, if you can then get Trent or Salah as a result and you really want to do that, then I would go for option 1. Otherwise, my personal preference will be number 2. Do the -4 hit, and there you go. Best defender on the 4.6. For me, it's Anderson and Kilman. And that's why I've gone for them at the moment. Start Richie or Sancho for draft. I would actually favour Richarlison from those two. Pray for me. Just went KDB, Jesus to Tony, and Salah captain. I mean, they're both great duos. And to be honest, Salah captain looks really good, Deadly Mantis, and I would captain him if I had him. So good luck to you. Hopefully it turns out well, although I do hope for Jesus Hall, despite me not having him as well. Need to transfer out Rashford. Who to get? Well, it looks like he is in training, so he could feature, and he's got some, maybe not great fixtures, but he still can do very well in these tougher games against the high lines. So, look, if you are insistent on selling him, then I would look at, of course, apart from the obvious Martinelli, I would look at Sinistera. He would be one of my favourites. It's a bit of a shame because you're 0.1 million off Barnes, but he hasn't been that good this season, to be fair. Foden to Madison, I would do it, yep, especially with the Game Week 12 blank in mind. My team is Henderson, James, Cancelo. Yeah, I mean, I don't like Henderson too much, but he does have a high ceiling in terms of the saves and bonus points. But yeah, the clean sheets is the big issue there. Henderson or Ward? I would actually favour Ward in this game, but the problem is, you know, with Ward, I actually, if there's any team to get a clean sheet in that game, it would be Leicester, in my opinion. I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a tough one. Henderson has the highest ceiling. I'm not going to deny that. But I'd probably go for Ward just in case Leicester decide to finally keep a clean sheet. But it's kind of a risky one there. Let's see what else we have. I think the Newcastle game decides if Mitrovic goes up or not. Yeah, if he scores a goal or 2, he's going to go up. That's a really good point, Henry. Sterling or Haaland captain? I'd go for Haaland. I wouldn't captain Sterling, personally. Start Bailey, Perisic or Anderson? I wouldn't start Anderson this week. So it's between Bailey and Perisic, and I would favour Bailey for the fixture. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate you always giving a shout out. Thank you very much. Hi, Dylan. Please help me. Sterling plus Solanke or Mount and Tony? I'm not a big fan of Mount, to be honest. But would I want to spend over 10 million on a Chelsea asset? Not at the moment. But if I had to pick, I'd probably go for Mount and Tony, actually. I still would go there. That's my personal opinion. But I have to say, I'm not a big fan of Mount. I know he's looked better recently for England and Chelsea, but I would look elsewhere instead of him, personally. Salah, Antonio, or Kane, an 8 million midfielder. I mean, if it's Kane and Madison or Zaha, I would go for that instead, but it's really close. You know, both duos are fantastic. You can't go wrong with either. Hey, mate, done a -4. Isak to Tony and Kulusevski to Madison. Looks really good, Matt. It looks really good. Kulusevski could miss out today. It's all down to a late fitness test, and Tony's a great option. Isak's, of course, injured, so looks great. Anderson or Castagna? I'd go for Anderson for the fixtures. And despite Crystal Palace being bottom in some underlying metrics for the defensive stats, I don't think that is a true reflection of their defence. And they've got great fixtures to turn things around. So I would go for Anderson. Start Tielemans or Martinelli? I'd still go for Martinelli, but Tielemans has a great fixture. And he's on penalties potentially. Is Richarlison nailed? I wouldn't say he's nailed, but Kulusevski could be out, and as a result, he should start. The thing is, though, Spurs could play a different formation and play a 3-5-2, and in essence, it would be Basuma taking Richarlison's spot and adding a further midfielder to the Spurs midfield. So let me actually show you what Paul O'Keefe has predicted, and although there might be 1 or 2 things he will get wrong, it still is a good prediction overall. So he's gone for Lloris in goal, Romero, Dyer, Lenglet, Perisic, Højbjerg, Bissouma, Bentancur, Sessegnon, Kane and Son. I think the changes that could happen from this team is Perisic at left wing back and Emerson Royal as the right wing back. So I think that's what could happen because Perisic was poor against Leicester on the right-hand side despite getting the assist. But I actually agree with the rest of the predicted lineup. Let me know what you think, but that is my personal opinion. And if we check the predicted lineups from Emma, for example, which I always recommend, they do the predicted lineups for the kind of so-called top six. Arsenal here, Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Tierney, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli and Jesus are all predicted to start. I mean, it's kind of a close one between... Well, actually, I said Tierney. It's actually Zinchenko who's a bit more favoured to start. That should be an interesting one, by the way. I think Tierney is better defensively, but Zinchenko offers a bit more in possession. Both good options anyway. I don't think Arsenal can go wrong with either. But yeah, there you go. That's the Arsenal predicted lineup. And the ones I think we'll be more interested in will be the Spurs ones. So Lloris, Romero, Emerson Royal, Lenglet. Then you've got Dyer, Perisic. No Sessegnon there, so it's kind of what I just said there. Perisic and Emerson as the wing-backs. Højbjerg, Son, Bentancur, Kane and Richarlison. So they're actually going for a front three. Not much love for Bissouma, really. So that's kind of the big differences between this predicted lineup and Paul O'Keefe. So I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And then we have the other big teams. Man United, De Gea, Varane, Dalot, Martinez, Malacia, Eriksen, Fernandes, McTominay, Anthony, Rashford is predicted to start, and then we've got Sancho in there, and only one person predicted Ronaldo to start, and to be honest, that's probably where it's going to be. Then you've got Chelsea, and it looks like Kepa will be starting in goal, and then you've got Koulibaly, Chilwell, James, Fofana, Thiago Silva, Jorginho, Kovacic, Mount, Havertz, and it looks like, yeah, Alba, Sterling, so... Yeah, that is kind of their predicted lineup. That would be a bit interesting. So Mount being a bit more central. And then you've got Havertz up front with Sterling and Aubameyang. So let's wait and see. And yeah, not much love for Broja as well. Then you've got Liverpool, kind of the typical really. But there is a big kind of debate between Jota, Darwin Núñez and Firmino starting. That is where people are kind of conflicted on. The rest is what you would expect. Tsimikas will be starting as well. So yeah, those are kind of all the main lineups. You've also got Man City. I don't expect, many big surprises. They probably will play the best team possible, and that does include leaving the likes of Gundogan on the bench, which is incredible. But there you go. Rashford or Martinelli? I'd go for Martinelli. KDB or Son? Son for me, just for the Game Week 11 differential captaincy. But otherwise, if it wasn't for the Game Week 12 blank, it would be De Bruyne for me, as I've said for several weeks. Will Rashford start? I believe so. As we just covered, I think he will start. Start Gaeta or Ramsdale? I'd start Ramsdale. Loftus-Cheek? Yeah, that's a good point. So if we go back to the Chelsea lineup, yeah, no love for Loftus-Cheek. No one's predicted him to start. Yeah, either way, he's not really an FPL option. I was considering maybe get Paqueta for Martinelli in the wildcard. The thing is, though, Paqueta hasn't really shown anything offensively to really justify that. Martinelli is still the best option at his price and below. You've also got Rashford, of course, and then not to mention the likes of St. Maximin if you want, and you've also got Sinistera. I'd rather go to those options instead. What about Longstaff for sub? For me, it's just Andres Pereira and Bailey, and, if you need a 4.5 million option, so to speak, you've got Reed. It doesn't really matter, but if you can, I would stretch to Andres Pereira instead. Should I bring in Son, or is Zaha and Foden better? I mean, I do like Zaha and Foden, but also think about the Game Week 12 blank, and if you've got 3 Man City players and you've got several Arsenal players, then I would get rid of Foden, for example. But Zaha, for me, is not a must, but he's one of the best options on the wild card, and also just long-term in the midfield. Fofana or Nico Williams to play? I'd probably favour Fofana. I just don't expect a clean sheet for Nottingham Forest. Thoughts on Fofana? Decent option at his price, but I do prefer Kilman and Anderson and Margay. Sterling or Son? Son. Gaeta or Fabianski on the wildcard? Gaeta. KDB was 0 million. I can't afford Salah in Game Week 12 or Son. I mean, this is the thing, though. If you go for Son anyway, you still won't be able to afford Salah because you need the extra millions regardless. So, look, it's just down to your opinions, the way you want to structure your team. I would go for Son for the different captaincy option in 11. That's why I'm going for him myself. Thank you, Mason. I appreciate it. Kane and Foden or Son and Tony? Son and Tony, but it's You know, two really good duos, but I would favour Son and Tony from those two. I think there's not much more to cover. So we've gone through, you know, the kind of clickbait article, which, you know, kind of suggested of Zaha, you know, missing out. But in the actual article itself, it talks about him not being one of the 3 injury doubts for Crystal Palace. We've covered the Spurs predicted lineup by Paul O'Keefe and also other predicted lineups for the top 6. So we've kind of gone for everything we need to. And yeah, we've also covered, you know, the kind of reasoning behind these wildcard picks. I think I'm going to be, you know, staying with these options. You know, set of alternative picks I could go for is Mark Gay instead of Anderson, and that funds Martinelli to Barnes. But I haven't seen enough from Barnes to really justify that. And I think I'm just going to stick with what I have here. The only thing that I might actually end up doing is just go for Kevin De Bruyne from the get-go and then bring Son around Game Week 11. But I don't know, I just don't like booking in transfers, and I love the Game Week 11 differential captaincy. And actually, because I got rid of Kevin De Bruyne and he's since gone up in price to 12.3, I actually won't be able to afford it unless I downgrade Anderson to Gay. So honestly, I like the team how it is. And I think I'm going to be sticking to this, although I could also do Ward to Iverson. So there you go, kind of a template draft with a few differentials, so to speak. I would consider Son to be a differential. His ownership is 11%. You've got Kilman at 1.9%. You've got Anderson as well at 2.7%. I think Gay's a little bit less, but he's a bit more popular in the Twitter community, so to speak. But Gay's ownership will probably go up even more by the time the deadline passes. We've still got 44 minutes left. I'll try to keep on streaming until then. So if you've got any more questions or comments, then be sure to let me know. And also be sure to tune in for the reaction stream. I hope to do one maybe tomorrow. I'll keep you guys updated. And also the UCL Fantasy deadline stream on the Tuesday. And I also have videos already recorded and edited for UCL Fantasy. The team selection video could be out today or tomorrow. And there's also the best limitless team video. So be sure to tune in for all of that. And yeah, also play the wildcard in F1 Fantasy. There's so much to think about with these fantasy games at the moment. But there we go. All right, so if you've got any feedback as well, by the way, on my team, then obviously I encourage you to leave your thoughts. Good Nottingham Forest option, Nico Williams, just because he's cheap and easy to bench. And if needed, he can come on. And he's got a bit of decent attacking threat. But otherwise, is there anyone else? Dean Henderson's a decent goalkeeper, but I wouldn't go for him. And then it's really Awani or Brennan Johnson. That's about it. And I just don't think it's worth it. Kane and Bowen or Salah and Solanke? I'd probably go for Salah and Solanke. Just about. James is facing Palace, can't guarantee a clean sheet. Of course, and you could even bench him this week, but his attacking threat is why I'm going for him. When are we getting our next wildcard? Basically after the World Cup. So remember, we do get unlimited transfers after Game Week 16, heading into Game Week 17 without using the wildcard. So don't worry about that. That's why a lot of people are playing the wildcard early this season. And the next wildcard will then be available after the Game Week 17 deadline. Hey Dylan, what game week are you planning on bringing back Salah? Depending on what we see in the next few weeks from Salah and Liverpool, Game Week 12 or 13 potentially. I really like him as a captaincy option in Game Week 12 against West Ham, more so than Son against Man United away. So Game Week 12 is a possibility. I much prefer Barnes to Martinelli next 4 and having my wildcard. Yeah, in terms of fixtures, I completely agree with you, but I just think Martinelli's a better option. So if we saw more from Barnes and Leicester, then I would be inclined to, go for him as well. But I just can't bring myself, I think. Do you think Mount will be gross at Potter era? That's a good suggestion and comparison. I think that is possible. Then you're looking at Sterling being the kind of Trossard, potentially. Yeah, I think that's a good shout. But Gross he's not been that great in the last few seasons offensively under Graham Potter. And I think he had that spell in 2017-18 when he first joined the club where he was getting a lot of fantasy returns, and that wasn't under Graham Potter. So look, Mount is good in terms of goals and assists anyway, and I think he will start to step things up. But things definitely turned quite sour in the first half of the season. Mount has been pretty awful before Potter joined, but of course, too early to tell. We've only seen him play once under the new manager. I'm tempted to try out Aubameyang. I just can't recommend it. He's too expensive, and you've got Tony and Mitrovic who are cheaper. They're probably going to score more goals. They've got good fixtures. I just can't bring myself to recommend that personally. But of course, FPL is about, hopefully, going about things differently, backing your gut and making your own decisions. So if you want Aubameyang, go for it, I just don't really see it, and I don't think he's the same player as he once was. Thoughts on Pickford? I think he's one of the better options around his price. I would still prefer Gaeta because of the fixtures. And Everton over the next 3 or 4, you know, it doesn't look too great. I don't see too many clean sheets, but I think he's a good option. He's probably in my top 3 or 5 options on the wildcard, or in terms of goalkeepers anyway. Madison Barnes is a double-edged sword over this week's wildcard, as we've all brought in Madison. Forest, Bournemouth, Palace, Leeds next 4 could see a windfall. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I think, look, that's a good way of differentiating your team as well. Going for a double up in Leicester attack. It's just, I can't really see myself having, in essence, it would be a triple up in Leicester. Obviously, Ward is just there for the bench. But I don't know. I think Madison's enough for me. And I'd rather differentiate my team in other areas. Although my team is fairly template, I will recognise that. Kurt Zuma for set pieces. Not only that, he's also nailed on. But I think he has a decent chance. You know, he's a really good in the air. That is a good suggestion as well. And he's probably a safer pick than Sufa and Creswell. In Boomer or Jesus, I'd still go for Jesus from the 2. Sterling better than Son, Zaha better than Gross. Yeah, I would do that. Well, actually, let me hold up. I mean, as much as I prefer Son over Sterling, I wouldn't get rid of Zaha for Gross, by the way. But if you're talking about who's better, I think Son and Zaha would be my ideal duo there. Why is no one looking at Rashford on the wild card? Because he was an injury out, he's facing Man City, but I don't think the City fixture's that bad for Rashford because of the high line. I think he can get some joy. So, no, Rashford for me is a good option. I consider him in. You know, if you check out my team selection video, I was actually considering going for him and Harry Kane and Saka instead of the trio that I have currently. I haven't played my wildcard, Game Week 12 or 13, which is better. I don't know what your team is like, so it's hard for me to say, but Game Week 12 looks good. Zaha or Madison? Madison right now because of the fixture, but both really good options. So I think I'd just about favour Madison. Estupinian or Dallo for the next game week and future? Dallo for the future, to be honest. What I like about Estupinian is the game week 12 fixture against Nottingham Forest, but he's not that nailed. I'd say Dallo. Andreas or De Silva to start? Andreas. Start Nico or Gross? I'd start Gross, honestly. KDB out for Madison. It's kind of hard for me to say get rid of KDB, to be honest. I'd say no if you can. Try to get Madison in for someone else. Do you think Emerson Palmieri will start in the coming game weeks? I think he will get the occasional game, but not enough to really warrant him being a main starter for you. When is the best week for wildcard? Once again, you know, like I said to you earlier, I can't tell you because I don't know your team. You know, it's very hard for me to say. Now is a good time for a lot of people if they haven't played the wildcard already, and also Game Week 12 potentially. With, you know, it's a good way of addressing that game week and the blanks. You can also enjoy the City and Arsenal assets just before that. But really, it's Game Week 9 or 12 for me. Start Zaha or Martinelli? Martinelli. I wildcarded last week, and we have almost the exact same team, but you have Son and I have KDB. Slight change in the bench too. Yeah, I think Kilman is kind of one player that wouldn't have been in my Game Week 8 wildcard team, and maybe Anderson as well. The rest would be very similar. You know, my wildcard teams have been very similar, you know, that I've talked about in recent videos. KDB to Salah for a -4? No, I wouldn't take a -4. Would you bench boost Ward, Justin, Bella Kotchap, and Bailey? No, I wouldn't bench boost. I think you'll have better opportunities with double game weeks later on. Should I -4 for Madison? For who though? Not for De Bruyne, definitely not. Is Trippier a must-have on the wildcard? I don't think he's a must-have, but at his price and below, he's the best option. You know, Saliba's the other one that I think matches him, but he blanks in 12, has poor fixtures, so Trippier's the best one in my opinion. I think I'll regret selling Bernardo Silva this week. If you're selling him for Madison, I don't think you'll regret it too much, but Bernardo's a decent option actually in the derby. He's done well in recent Manchester derbies, and also against Southampton, you know, that's a really good fixture I think for City, although it has been quite low scoring, as Singh said earlier in the stream. So yeah, it just depends who you're selling Bernardo Silva for, really. So we've covered everything here. And if you've got any more questions or comments, then be sure to let me know. Tony or Jesus? Tony. It has to be Tony for me with the fixtures, and he's cheaper. He's not 1 yellow card away from suspension. He's on penalties. There's a lot to like with Tony. I would go for him. But Jesus, never underestimate him. He could do very well in this London derby. So yeah, we are currently on 97 likes. Let's keep on smashing the like button. We are very, very close to getting to 100. So let's keep on smashing the like button and let's get to 15,000 subscribers. We've also made a bit of progress. We are almost 250 subscribers away. Oh, not 250? I can't count. 270, 280 subscribers away from 15,000 subscribers. Thank you, Rania, for being a member for almost a year. Thank you very much. 0 Point Family in the bank, 2 free transfers. I think Kulusevski's the one you want to get rid of. But when you're looking at your team, I mean, yeah, you're starting the Silva. That would be a big concern for me. And you're starting Andreas. So, yeah, with 2 free transfers, I think this is easily... you can start to sort things out. I would do Kulusevski out to Madison. I think that's a very simple move. It doesn't require much thought. And I would also get rid of Cash, to be honest. I mean, I just don't like him too much. I don't like Aston Villa defensively. And also the big issue in the weeks to come is the City Arsenal players. So you've got Haaland, Jesus, Martinelli, Cancelo, and Saliba. So you've got 5 Arsenal City players. I'd start to trim that down. And the main ones I'd look to get rid of, probably Jesus and Saliba, to be honest. So, yeah, I would get rid of Kulusevski for Madison, and to be honest, you could even get rid of Saliba and, for example, go to Trippier. Yeah, I think those are quite simple transfers. I think you have the money for that. Yeah, that should be fine, Aranya. Gaeta over Pope, I would go for Pope personally. I'm captaining Kane, isn't that brave? I mean, it's completely up to you. I think he's a good option, but Haaland for me is slightly better. Kane's record against Arsenal speaks for itself. Almiron or Mbeumo? Probably Mbeumo. Should I start Justin over James or Trippier? I wouldn't, personally. I would start James and Trippier. I have 10 million in the bank. Which midfield to go for? Sterling, Zaha, Luis Diaz, or anyone else? I'd go for Zaha. Best Robertson replacement if you already have James, Trippier, and Cancelo. I'd say Trent as a like-for-like, but if not, and you don't have the money, I would probably look at... I'd probably go to a Kilman or someone like that. You can downgrade and then invest it in your midfield and maybe perhaps get Salah back in around Game Week 12. So it's completely down to what you're looking to do in the next few weeks. Should I start Justin? Yeah, just answer that. How do you feel about clean sheets in the coming weeks? Fairly confident. I mean, I don't see too many clean sheets in general for most teams, so I'm not that bothered by it. But what I have in the likes of Cancelo, Trippier, and James is attacking potential. I advise people to go for Kiefer Moore instead of Solanke. Yeah, I mean, you could be onto something there, mate. You could be onto something, and Solanke could be a trap. But for his price, it is worth a punt and the fixtures. Hello, Dylan. Do I start Iverson instead of Gaeta this week? I would do it, but Iverson I don't think will start based on Roger's comments yesterday. Either way, doesn't matter. He can then be subbed out automatically. Start Pope or Ward. I would go for Pope. Play Perisic or Gross. I would play probably Gross, just about. De Bruyne or Tony for captain. I'd go for De Bruyne. Salah or Haaland captain. Salah. If I had him, he would be my captain. Yeah. So that kind of covers about everything. We've got 33 minutes left for the deadline. And yeah, thank you to everyone for liking the video and for smashing the subscribe button. I very much appreciate it. And yeah, there's more streams and videos to come over the next few days. Why Son over De Bruyne? I've been asked this question probably 10 times today. I mean, the reason why is the Game Week 11 differential captaincy. Facing Everton, De Bruyne will be facing Liverpool. And he's cheaper. And not only that, he is a differential. De Bruyne is owned by over 30% of the game. Son's owned by around 11%. So there's several reasons why I've gone for Son. I do recognise that De Bruyne is the better option in isolation, but he also blanks in Game Week 12. So there's kind of too many reasons for me to not go for De Bruyne right now. And if I do go for him now, I'd be booking in a transfer for Game Week 11 potentially. Striker for 5.9, probably Solanke. Broya, it looks like he's not going to be starting, unfortunately. So you're really down to Solanke. Should I start Trippier or Bailey? I'd start Trippier. Best week for bench boost? No week in particular. Basically a double game week later in the season. We don't know which game week that will be yet. Thank you, Pat. In Solanke, out Tony, and in Trent, out Trippier on a wildcard. Honestly, I do prefer Trippier and Tony as a duo, and you can always bring Trent back in and make these transfers of Trent and Solanke in Game Week 12 or 13. You don't need to do it right now, I think. How much money do you have left in the bank? 0.5, actually. So that's why I can't actually go from Son to De Bruyne anymore unless I downgrade Walter Iverson or Anderson to Gay. Yeah. Also on Simicast for 2 game weeks. I think it's a good short-term punt. I'm not sure if he lasts the 2 game weeks in particular, but he will be a good option for this week for sure. He is facing Arsenal and City just after that, though. That's the problem. Is this a good transfer plan? KDB to 10, then KDB to Son for 11, and 12, then Son plus Tony out for Salah and Solanke. Yeah, it does look good. And also with the fixtures, it works out very well. But FPL and football isn't always about fixtures, and form is very important. And jumping between these premiums can always backfire. So look, I like the idea. It's a really good plan, but it doesn't mean it's going to work, basically. And I don't like booking in transfers too much. Son, Tony, or De Bruyne, Solanke? Son and Tony. Start Diaz or Martinelli, and why? I'd start Diaz because I think Liverpool will score 2 or 3 goals against Brighton. Arsenal could do the same against Spurs, but Spurs are the second best defensively in terms of the underlying numbers so far this season, behind Arsenal, I believe. And Diaz, I think, has a good chance of returns against Brighton, to be honest. And we just don't know what we're going to get from Brighton under their new manager. And he is a very offensive manager based on what we've heard and seen during his time as Sassuolo. And I think there's going to be some opportunities there for Liverpool to start to kickstart the season again. Will Cucurella start? I don't think so. I believe he's injured. Any thoughts going into captaining Madison? Consider Tony. I'd rather consider Madison for the captaincy over Tony. I think the fixture's there for him, and Madison's been fantastic all season, but he hasn't had or delivered multiple attacking returns in one game so far, and that could change for sure in Game Week 9, but I still would rather go for Haaland for the captaincy, and that's why I'm not going to go for it. He is my vice-captain, but yeah, just not enough confidence to put the armband on him, to be honest. I have a bad feeling for Trippier on away games. Do I prefer him for the home fixtures? I mean, Newcastle are better defensively at home, of course. It's kind of a bit of a fortress. They're very hard to beat. Newcastle have only won 1 game so far this season, but I think Pope and Trippier offer really good value at the back. And yeah, look, in the away games, I wouldn't expect too much, especially against Fulham, who have looked really good. I've got Mitrovic starting as well, but Trippier has the attacking threat anyway. Barnes or Justin? I'd actually rather go for Barnes, to be honest, but the thing that I like about Justin is he's cheap and he's got a bit of attacking threat, but I just don't like Leicester defensively at all, so it has to be Barnes for me. Pope or Iverson? I'd go for Pope. Madison for Gross for -4? Yep, I would do it. Salah or KDB or Son? I've gone for Son for the reasons I described earlier, but Kevin De Bruyne has been fantastic and he's been the best premium midfielder all season. Captain Diaz or Haaland? I'd captain Haaland. Play Justin or Zaha? I'd play Zaha still. Madison or Diaz? Madison. Salisu or Trippier this week? Trippier. Emerson replacement under 4.5 million? Mark Gay. Will Rashford start? I believe so. Salah or KDB? Yeah, just answer that, mate. Who to bench, Sufa or Gross? I would bench Gross out of those two. Bailey, Perisic or Andreas? I would start Bailey. Solanke for Mitrovic and Son for Sterling. Thoughts? I'm not a big fan of doing Mitrovic to Solanke, and that's why I'd say no, and I'd keep Sterling, actually. Thoughts on Tony captain? Not for me. I think Bournemouth have been fairly decent against the non-top 6 opposition. It could be a high-scoring game, and Tony's been fantastic all season, but I wouldn't captain him. I think he scores, but I don't think he scores multiple goals, and look, I could be wrong. Start Emerson or Andreas? I would start Emerson. That is the issue, Matt, and that's my concern. And honestly, I think most people would tell you, especially West Ham fans, that Krezl will start this week. So that could be an issue. But if West Ham play a back 3, Emerson has probably a very good chance of starting. So it could just go either way. If Emerson starts, I think there's a high chance of returns, the clean sheet, than Andreas. Would you drop Martinelli for Leeds midfielder? I wouldn't. I like Sinistera, but I wouldn't go for it. Bench Sufa or Bailey? I'd probably bench Bailey out of those two. I have gone to a Champions League game before Rock and Roll, but I mean, there's no need for me to go to one now. I mean, the closest, that I can go to a Champions League game is Spurs, and I'm never going to a Spurs Champions League game. So, yeah, I'm not going to go to a Champions League game at the moment. Start Bailey or Perisic? Bailey. Ward or Pope? Pope. Cancelo or Trent? I prefer Cancelo. Unfortunately, I have Kane and Son for this week. Should I remove one? I don't think you necessarily need to, and then you've got them for Game Week 11, and they could be fantastic against Everton, for example. I wouldn't get rid of them necessarily. Mitrovic for hat-trick and a good shout for captaincy. I don't think he will score a hat-trick, and look, he's always a good option, from the kind of non-top 6 players at your disposal, but I wouldn't go for it against Newcastle. Get Madison for Diaz? Yes, I would. What do you think about Kane or Madison captaincy? Kane has a great record against Arsenal. We all know this. He's been fantastic all season. No blanks since the Game Week 1 blank against Southampton. And Madison's been fantastic throughout the whole calendar year, but I would still go for Haaland personally. Out of those two, think I would favour Madison slightly for the captaincy, but it's a really close one. Bench Bailey or Andreas? I would bench Andreas. Trippier or Solanke? To start, I mean, honestly, I just go for Trippier. That would be my answer. Bench Cancelo or Martinelli? I'd rather bench Martinelli from those two. I think it is going to be my final team, yes. Unless I make a final change, I don't know what that would be. Maybe Son to De Bruyne, and then that would involve changing Anderson to Gay, something like that. But not much will change from this team. Captain KDB or Kane? I'd rather Captain KDB actually from those two, but it's really close. And if you look at the records, then you would favour Kane, but yeah, probably KDB. Trippier or Tony? To start this week, Tony. To have overall, probably still Tony. Yeah, so my answer's Tony there. Who will start, Ward or Iverson? Based on what we heard yesterday from Rogers, I think it's going to be Ward again. But let's wait and see. Is Jota a good pick over Jesus Darwin? Jota's far too much of a rotation risk. Even if he starts in Game Week 9, will he start in Game Weeks 10 and 11? I wouldn't go for him. I love Odegaard's style of play, and I was feeling sad selling him. Yeah, but the blank in Game Week 12, the poor fixtures. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, and also he, missed out in Game Week 8, so looks good. Trent and Solanke in for Trippier and Tony? Not yet. I would say that for Game Week 12 or 13. Yeah, this is my wildcard team, Cohen. Do you think West Ham will come back? Brian, thoughts? I think West Ham will improve. They're not going to be in the relegation zone all season. I'd be very surprised. I think Bowen will maybe have some good game weeks, but he won't be anywhere near as good as he was last season. I mean, he's got one shot on target after 7 games, for Christ's sake. So, yeah, I think Bowen could come good in the next few game weeks, but not enough for me to justify going for him over Zaha, Saka, Madison, etc. Do you back Pope over Ward? Yeah, honestly, I do. I know he's facing Fulham, but I don't expect Leicester to keep a clean sheet. I have Dean Patterson injured. Also have Walker Dunk. Possibly will remove Dean for this week. Any suggestions? Kilman, Anderson, Gay. I think they're all good options to replace him. Captain KDB or Haaland? Both really good. If you want to go a bit differential, go for KDB, but I personally am favouring Haaland. Salah captain? Yes, if I had him, I would captain him. Is Gordon worth taking as a differential? I don't think so. Other midfielders are Zaha, Madison, Salah, Andreas. Yeah, not for me. I don't think it's worth it. And he has been good so far this season, but I don't trust Everton offensively. I wouldn't go there. Salah captain? Yep. Emerson or Nico Williams? For this week, I'd rather go for Emerson. Start Bailey or Emerson? Bailey. Should I sell De Bruyne for Salah for a -4? No, not for a -4 here. Creswell or Chilwell for the next 3 game weeks? I mean, I'd have more confidence in Creswell starting all 3 games, although there is obviously a chance of him being benched in one of them, especially with Conference League coming about. Probably say Creswell. Welcome, No Cap. How good is Madison captain? He's good, but not good enough for me to captain, I think, because he hasn't delivered multiple attacking returns in 1 game so far this season, and Leicester are awful. Thank you, LFC. No Liverpool players. What's the plan with them? To potentially bring them back in Game Week 12 or 13 when they show signs of improvement. Is Captain Madison over Haaland worth the risk? I think it's worth a risk, but I'm not going to go there. I think Haaland will score more points, and that's why I'm going to stick to it. But I think there is, it wouldn't be that surprising if Madison scored more points this week. Casemiro will come in and break KDB's leg. Hopefully not. Triple Leicester in the starting lineup. Oh yeah, no, that I would be very nervous about that. If there's like 3 attackers, then fair enough, because I could see them scoring 3 or 4, but they also could concede the same amount. Start McAllister or Nico Williams? I'd probably start McAllister. Hi Dylan, start Perisic or Odegaard? I would start Odegaard. Cheers Dylan, do you think West Ham could get the clean sheet? Of course, I think they have a good chance for a clean sheet. The same goes for Wolves. A 0-0 isn't out of the equation. Or should I switch out Sufal to get Martinelli in? That's the thing though. I mean, I do back them potentially for a clean sheet, but would I bench Martinelli, who has a decent ceiling even against Spurs? Not too sure about that. Bernardo has a good record versus United, yep. Bring him in for Zaha. No, because you'd want Zaha back in the weeks to come. Yeah, Diaz is a good differential, but I don't think he's worth it over Madison, Saka, all these options we've discussed today. Zinchenko or Gordon to start this week? I'd rather start Gordon this week. Pick 2 from Barnes, Zaha and Sinistera. Zaha and Sinistera. Start 1, Andreas, Nico, Gross. Andreas. Kulusevski replacement, I've got 8.5. Madison, if not Zaha. Those would be my two best replacements. Thoughts on Ward and Iverson? I think Ward will start based on Roger's comments yesterday, but anything can happen. Sterling or Son? Son. Kulusevski replacement? Yeah, just answer that. Callum Wilson differential over Tony? Yes, especially with Isak out, but Wilson's such an injury-prone player. I mean, he's probably going to get injured very soon as well, unfortunately, so I just would rather go for Tony, but as a differential, when he's fit, Wilson's really good as well. Yeah. Captain Madison or Kane? I think I'd go for Madison. I think early in the week I would have said Kane, but I'd probably be tempted to say Madison. Also, Sar's my goalkeeper on the wildcard. I mean, he's been fantastic all season. Despite having some tough fixtures, it's a really good choice. Xhaka to score a screamer from 25 yards from Saka layoff. I mean, I wouldn't mind that, but let's wait and see. Tony or Mitrovic? Others are Haaland and Jesus. Mitrovic, if I had to pick one. Hi Dylan, Nico Williams or Soufal this week? Soufal, for sure. Son or Madison captain? Madison. Hey Dylan, would you save a transfer or do Perisic to James instead? I think I would do Perisic to James, but rolling the transfer isn't bad. Mitrovic or Tony? I would go for Mitrovic. Paqueta or Sinistera? Sinistera. No chance of fitting in Kane or KDB in your final team? I mean, it's not impossible, but I think I'm going to stick with this. Best goalkeeper combo in terms of value in the wildcard? I mean, I don't like having two rotating goalkeepers that much, but if you want to do that, then Guyton Pickford for me is probably the best way to go. Losing it between who to play among Anderson, Andreas Gross, or Nico Williams. Anderson's playing Chelsea, and I don't expect a clean sheet there. Nico Williams, I mean, I think Leicester will score a few goals past Nottingham Forest, so it's between Andreas and Gross, and I'd probably go for Gross. Hi Dylan, bench Gross for Williams? Nope, not for me, Clifford. I mean, is Diaz a good differential captain? As for a captain, no, I don't think I'd go there. I have more confidence in Salah, despite Diaz being the better option so far this season. Salah or Son? For this week, Salah, but to have from Game Week 9 up until Game Week 12, I do prefer Son slightly. Captain Tony or Madison? Madison. Keep Isak in my team and play Andreas, or take the -4 to get Tony in over Isak? I take the -4 because Isak is going to be out for several weeks, and Tony is a good option to replace him. Hi Dylan, what are your thoughts on Leon Bailey and Perisic? I'd probably start Bailey over him, but there's not much to separate the two. Who would you pick, Cresswell or Zuma, plus Harrison or Sinistera? I would pick Sinistera and Zuma. Thank you very much for the question, mate. Bailey or Zuma to start? Bailey. Although West Ham have a decent chance of a clean sheet. Rodrigo's back from injury. How do you see him this game week? I mean, he might not be rushed back in, that's the thing, and he could be on the bench and then come on. It could be a gradual process, and also it might take him time, even if he does start, to get back into the rhythm and showing what he did at the beginning of the season. So I would wait and see for now. Keep Isak or sell to Tony? I would sell to Tony. Any chances your captain changes to Madison? I don't think so. I think I'm going to stick with Haaland. Pick 2 out of Zuma, Kilman, Dallo, Gay, and Justin on the wildcard. I mean, I'm going for Kilman and Gay, or Anderson, so that would be my 2. But the others don't look too bad either. Yeah, you do have Gaeta, though, as your goalkeeper. In that case, I go for Kilman and actually Dallo. It's just the fixtures aren't that great, and in Game Week 12 they play Tottenham. But then Zuma plays Liverpool in Game Week 12 when you need him. Maybe Justin could be the way to go for you, but I don't trust Leicester defensively. So honestly, I would go for Kilman and Gay or Dallo. Bamford versus Villa? No, that's too risky. I'd rather go for Sinistera or even Rodrigo. Bamford is a no-go for right now. Madison or Diaz? Madison all day long. You ready for the North London derby? Yes, I am. Ward and Trippier out for Pope and Gay? Yes. I wouldn't do it for a hit, though, or anything like that. Downgrade Son for a better third striker? Or keep Son and put Solanke? So really what it comes down to is what, Son and Solanke, or let's say Sterling and Tony. I mean, that is quite tough, to be fair. Yeah, I probably would go from Solanke to Tony or Mitrovic, and then maybe get Sterling for Son potentially, but not for -4 or something like that. So Isak for Solanke, not a bad choice, but I do prefer Tony, Mitrovic, and the others that we always talk about. I don't have Salah in my team. The only options I'd consider as a captain is Haaland. Just wondering whether Diaz could be worth it. That's completely fair enough. And look, he could be worth it, to be honest. I think Diaz has a decent chance of returns, but I don't trust him enough as an FPL asset to captain him. Son or De Bruyne? I'm going for Son. I think the Gameweek 12 blank is really what kind of puts me in that direction, and also the captaincy differential in Gameweek 11. Bench Andreas or Gross? I would bench Andreas. No league team news as far as I'm aware. I think Bro's not going to start. That's kind of the big news we got. I think that's about it. Start Bella Kotchup or Gundogan, Pope or Ward? I'd start Gundogan and Pope. Gross or Bailey? I'd start Bailey this week. Is Isak back next week? I'm not sure exactly when he's going to be back, but he's not going to be playing this week, I think. So, yeah, either way, I don't think he's a great option regardless. I mean, he's not a bad one. Let me not sugarcoat it, but yeah, I'm not sure. Will Bailey play? Yes, I believe so, but you never know with him. Bailey or Soufal? I think I'll go for Bailey for the attacking threat. Alan or Salah captain? I'd go for Salah this week. Soufal or Mitrovic? Mitrovic. Martinelli or Rodrigo? Martinelli. Salah, Haaland or Madison captain? I'd go for Salah out of those three. Soufal or Mitrovic? Yeah, I just answered that. Hi Dylan, which club do you support? I support Arsenal. It's sad, but I believe Crystal Palace and Leicester have the best chance for clean sheets before the World Cup. Leicester, I mean, I don't know. They're that awful defensively. I'm just not sure. The pictures are there, but the quality isn't. Crystal Palace, yeah, I think they can get some clean sheets. You think Alba will start? I think so. Who to start, Soufal or Mitrovic? Yeah, you asked that question a lot of times. Start Haaland or Solanke? Come on, you know the answer to that question. I've gone Isak to Wilson. What do you think, Dylan? I think that's a really good differential and something different from the usual Tony Mitrovic, which, to be honest, I've been kind of preaching. But yeah, I think Wilson's a good differential. And actually, I'd rather go to him than Solanke. My big issue with Wilson is the injuries. I think he'll be injured at some point very soon. It's kind of what always happens with him. And that's why I just don't go for him. Play Mikalenko or Martinelli? I go for Martinelli. Will Perisic start? I believe so. Alright, so let's try to get this video or stream to 150 likes. We're very close to doing that, so if you haven't already, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. And we're going to be wrapping up fairly soon. Ramsey or Bailey? I would rather go for Bailey. Is Madison a good differential captaincy? Yes, he is. Of course he is. But I haven't seen enough from Leicester, and even Madison to a certain extent, as a captaincy option to put the armband on him. I'd go for Pope, Brandon. I wouldn't go for Iverson. And honestly, I think Ward starts based on what Brendan Rodgers said yesterday. So, yep, that is my team. The only changes that could happen later on is Son to maybe De Bruyne. And also you're looking at something like maybe Anderson to Mark Gay to fund that move, or Ward to Iverson. But I think most of this will stay the same. Haaland captain, Madison vice, and there we go. Gay or Nico Williams? Gay. Son or KDB? I'm going for Son, but both are really good. I have 9 of your starting 11 with no wildcard. I'm happy with that. Gameweek 12 or 13 wildcard for me. That looks good. That looks good. Emma Twitter post Bro at this lineup. Is it legit? I'm not sure, to be honest, because in the predicted lineups they put, I don't think Bro was in it. And yeah, I'll check it now, but I don't know if that's true. Alright, so I'm going to bring the page up and see. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, but in terms of the predicted lineups, which involves a lot of Chelsea fans giving their opinions, Bro's not in it. And I think there was one page that is quite reliable that said Bro's not starting. So, yeah, it doesn't look like he will. Captain Salah worried about not having Trent but don't want Solanke. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think Salah's a great captaincy option. And yeah, look, you can't cover everyone. You can't have Trent, Kane, Salah, De Bruyne, Son. You can't have all of them. Gaeta and Ward or Iverson? I mean, I guess I go for Ward. It doesn't really matter too much anyway, because if Leicester do change managers at some point, then Iverson could then start getting the games, and he's 0.1 million cheaper. But I think by the end of today, Iverson could be up to 4 million, so they're both the same. I just go for Ward right now. It's not a big deal. Isak to Tony, Bowen to Zaha, is it worth a -4? Yes, I think it's worth a -4. I would stop Pope, Assad, but it's up to you. But may have Dalot as covering player, so Solanke doesn't start every week. Yeah, I think The problem with Dalot is that the fixtures in the next few aren't that great. So from a defensive point of view, you're not expecting too many clean sheets, but he is a good option. Diaz, Mitrovic, and Tony, or Salah, Mbuma, and Solanke? Diaz, Mitrovic, and Tony. Play Zaha or Solanke? I'd play, to be honest, I'd still play Zaha. Start Gross or Rashford? I'd start Rashford. Salah and Solanke or Son and Tony? Christian, I would go for the second one, so Son and Tony. Gaeta and Iverson or Ward and Iverson? I would not go for a double up in Leicester. I'd go for Gaeta and Iverson. Thank you, Safir. Can't afford Ward and Gaeta? Then just go for Iverson. There's nothing wrong with it, mate. If you look at Leicester City, I've been playing the top 8 teams or 10. Well, yes, so far this season they've been playing the top 10, but to be honest, Leicester against anyone have been looking awful, and even against the worst teams in the league, I could see them conceding 2 goals or more every game. Basically, my forwards are Tony and Haaland and need to have 5.9 for a third striker. Yeah, I probably would go for Solanke in that case, Carlos. Maybe downgrade Son to Sterling, maybe, and then put a third better striker. Yeah, you could do that as well. But honestly, yeah, I think Solanke is not a bad shout. Starting James and Fofana, 100% sure this will backfire, but Fofana, 2-point is better than Emerson, 1 point off the bench. Yes, but if Emerson starts and he gets a 6-pointer, you know, that could happen as well. But yeah, based on what we've seen recently, I think an Emerson 1-pointer can happen. Should I get Tony in for a -4? Depends who you're getting him in for, but I'm guessing it's from Isak, and I would do it. Thank you, Lungani. Appreciate your feedback. Captain KDB over Haaland. Not a bad shout, mate. And if you're looking to claw up some rank, it's a good time to do it, and it's a good opportunity. Pope or Gaeta? I would go for Pope. Hi, Sufal or Andreas? I would go for Sufal. Sticking with Son over De Bruyne. Let's hope it doesn't backfire. Same here. Let's wait and see what it has in store for us. I hope he blanks this week. I don't mind that. But in the weeks to come, he can get his returns if he wants. Will you sell Haaland at Game Week 12? No, I will not be selling him because I want him back afterwards. So, yeah, it would be De Bruyne, for example, if I had him. That would be making way instead. I can't switch Isak to Tony unless I make 2 transfers -4. I would take a punt, Sefir, personally. I have Rashford on my wildcard for long term, so should I just bench him for Zuma this week? Yes, but against City, it's not a bad, shout. You could start him, to be fair. Who would you pick between Anderson, Dalot, Gay, or Cher? Honestly, it would be Cher. Iverson, Totti, Salah, or Son, Ward, Justin, Gay? Not, Iverson versus Ward isn't a big deal. It's really the other two that you want to look at. And in that case, I would go for Son and Gay. Thank you, Sophia, for the shout-out. Yeah, Kenny, I answered your question already. What would make you happy today, Dylan? Is so scoring a lot of points for your team. What would make you happy? An Arsenal win. So if I score not that many points, I will take that, as long as it means Arsenal win. If both happens, even better. Thoughts on Emerson Palmieri? I don't think he's going to start that often, and I said this even before. At that point, I thought maybe he will get half the starts or something like that. If West Ham play a back 3, I think he will start because he's the better left wing back option than Creswell, who can then tuck in as the left centre back. But in a back 4, he's not going to start, in my opinion. So really, the games are going to come when the Conference League is happening or other cups like the Carabao or the FA Cup later on in the year. So, yeah, Emerson's just a 4 million option and he will get some starts, but not that often. Bowen to Madison -4, I would do it, but it can backfire. I do recognise that. I think Bowen has done well in the past against Wolves. Dylan, is your opinion, do you think Bailey's kind of nailed? No, I don't think he's nailed on, but he will start most games, so 70%, 75%. I don't know about an exact percentage, but he's not going to start every single game, in my opinion. Should I get Madison and Vardy for Gordon and Kane? Vardy, no. I mean, Madison I like a lot. I'd rather go to Tony or Mitrovic and have extra money to go for another premium, for example, but I wouldn't do Kane to Vardy. Gordon to Madison looks great. And I do recognise you need the extra funds and you have to get Vardy, for example, but right now I wouldn't do that. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate your comment. Mings or Gay for the next 3? I'd still go for Gay. Ruben Diaz or Trippier? Trippier. Do you think Rodrigo will start? I believe so, but it's 50-50. He could be on the bench. He's just come back from an injury. Cancelo or Trent? I would go for Cancelo. Obviously, for this week, Trent looks better, but Cancelo's my preference overall. Leon Bailey or James Justin? I'm not convinced Bailey starts. In that case, go for Justin, but yeah, I think Bailey has the highest ceiling and I don't trust Leicester defensively, so it's just down to your personal opinion. Wildcard team says Ismail. Yeah, it looks really good. I and you've got Salah in there already, and kind of Solanke's in there, I'm not sure where your bench is, but if you have Ward and Iverson, I would heavily reconsider that. Does Ben Johnson over Carrere replace Soufal as the starting right back? I think it will mean rotation for Soufal, a bit similar to Creswell versus Emerson. But yeah, I think Ben Johnson's the main one who can compete there. Obviously, Carrere has played there before, even in the Champions League final, I believe. But yeah, I think Ben Johnson's the main threat. Jose Sol Gaeta. To be honest, I mean, Jose Sol in isolation is the better pick. Gaeta is obviously cheaper, he has better fixtures, but Jose Sol, I think, is the better option. But what you could do is go for Gaeta and then Kilman. And that's what you could do instead. If not, Jose Sol and Mark Gay or Anderson. Kilman over Andreas this week? Yep, I probably would do that, mate. I think Kilman has a decent chance of a clean sheet. I would probably go there. My defense is James, Cancelo, Trippier, Perisic, Saliba. Looking to start a back three. At the moment, Saliba and Perisic are benched. Do you agree? Yes, I do. I would do that. Is Tsimikas nailed? No. He's only playing when Robertson's out, and once Robertson returns, he won't play. So it's just a short-term punt. Will Bailey start? I believe so, but I can't count on it, and I don't think he starts every week. Salah, Madison, captain. I would go for Salah. Captain Salah, Haaland. Salah. Will Kane outscore Haaland? I don't think so, but who knows? Bailey or Andreas? Bailey. Madison or Foden? Madison. Play Emerson from West Ham or take out Isak for a hit? I would take Isak out for a hit for Tony, but not from any other options. Start Walker Peters or Soufal or Almiron? Soufal. On wildcard, I have Salah. Should I change it? Nothing wrong with going for Salah. You can go for De Bruyne and Son as well, but yeah, I think he's a fine option too. Martinelli or Andreas? Martinelli. Captain Haaland or Kane? Haaland. Bailey or Andreas? Once again, Bailey. Yep, 5 minutes to go. Now 4. Idle and captain Haaland or Salah? I would go for Salah. Martinelli out for Madison. Yes, if that's the only way to get Madison, I would do it. Jesus or Mitrovic? Mitrovic. Bailey or Andreas? Yeah, you asked that quite a lot of times. Solanke or Tony? Tony. Pickford and Gay or Ward and Trippier, says Coopsy Coop. I would go for Pickford and Gay. Also, Brennan Johnson. Not really a big fan. I'd rather go to Solanke with the fixtures in mind, and also he's a bit cheaper. And also, you've got Mitrovic and Tony. So, Brennan Johnson's not bad, but I don't think he's that good anyway. I just wouldn't go for him. Captain Madison, since I don't have Haaland, yeah, go for it. I don't think it's a bad shout, and it could be a great differential captaincy. Best captain this week? Probably Salah, then Haaland. That's kind of my take on it. Should I take Bowen out for Zaha or Perisic out for a 6 million defender? Bowen out for Zaha, not this week. I would do that next week. So Perisic out for James would be my pick. If you have no bench boost, get Andreas out for the cheapest midfielder, then get Alisson instead of Pope. If you have no bench boost, I mean, yeah, either way, I wouldn't consider playing the bench boost at any point at the moment. I'd look for a double game week. Andreas or Solanke? Solanke this week. Luis Diaz -1 for Son. I would not get rid of. I wouldn't get rid of one for the other for a -4 this week. KDB to Salah for a -4. No, wouldn't do that. Obviously, Mo captain, it does make sense, even for a -4, but no, not for me. Saliba or Emerson? I would go for Emerson this week, but there is a chance he comes off the bench for a 1-pointer. Rashford or Martinelli? I would go for Martinelli. Yeah, we are now 3 minutes away. Zaha or Soufal this game week? I would go for... I'd still go for Zaha. Worth having Nico and another defender around 4 million to get Solanke, Mitrovic and Haaland rather than having Greenwood and Trippier. I don't like having 2 4 million defenders, so I would say no. Thank you, Jan. I appreciate your comment. And yeah, we've about covered every single question in the book. So it looks like my final team, unless I have a eureka moment, which I tend to do, is Nick Pope in goal, with Ward being the sub-goalkeeper. James, Cancelo, Trippier completing the defence. Madison, Son, Zaha, Martinelli completing a relatively strong midfield. Haaland captain with Mitrovic and Ivan Toney finishing off the team. And I've got Kilman first sub with Andreas second and Anderson last on my bench. I could go for Gay instead. And to be honest, it could help as well in my quest to potentially get Salah in for Son in Game Week 12 or 13. But at the moment, I am happy to go for Anderson instead. But the 0.2 million, I mean, is he worth the extra 0.2? Maybe not, but I think they're both good options anyway. I've gone for Madison for Bowen. Yep, I would have done the same thing, James. Saint-Maximin or Andreas this week? I'd go for Saint-Maximin, but long term, I'd rather have Andreas for the structure. I bought in Zaha for Saka to enable a switch to Tony -4. Yep. The thing is, I think Saka could backfire, of course. I think Saka has a better chance of returns than Zaha this week, but in the long term, Zaha's better. I saw a stat that the top 10 goal scorers of the Premier League of all time, no one had more goals than Haaland in the first 8 game weeks, including Salah. Yeah, he broke the record, and he hasn't even played 10 games yet, by the way. He's played like 7 games or something. So, yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Should I start Pereira, Soufal, Bailey, or Perisic? I would start Soufal from those lot, but you can also go for Bailey. Start Iverson or Pope? I'd go for Pope. Is Ibuma a good option? It's a tough question. I personally don't think he's a good option. I would just go for Solanke at the same price, or better still for me, Tony and Mitrovic. Nico Williams, 4.1 million budget. Yeah, I mean, it would have been Patterson, but he's injured, of course, so Nico Williams is probably your best bet. Williams or Saliba? This week, I prefer Saliba, actually. Vice Tony, as he's playing Bournemouth. That's fair enough. I mean, I don't expect huge returns from him, but it's possible. -4 for Martinelli and Madison in? No, I wouldn't do it for -4. Saint-Maximin or Andreas this week? Yep, answered that already. Don't want to get outpriced by 0.1 due to Wall versus Iverson. Don't care if Iverson doesn't start. Yeah, that's fair enough. That is a good point. And we're now locked in. So that is the wildcard team done. There might be some regrets, watch Iverson start and then be like, I could have saved 0.1 million there. And, oh no, I should have gone for Gay instead of Anderson. But these things happen. And I'm still quite happy with my decisions. Martinelli or Odegaard, I prefer Martinelli. Tete in, not for me. I don't trust Fulham defensively. Thank you, Jamba. Thank you, Math Lord. Thank you, Singh. And everyone else watching. Anas, Sharon, Sudindra. Thank you, Raf. No, there's not going to be any watch along. My voice is barely holding on for this stream. Got to give myself a rest for the other videos and streams coming up in the next few days. So, no watch along. And honestly, you don't want to see that. I transferred Bernardo Silva out for Madison. He has a good record against United, and he's a great player. But Madison's the better FPL option, so I wouldn't regret it, even if it doesn't pay off this week. Enjoy your weekend all. Yep, God bless us. Oh my God, voice crack. God bless as well, Lager. Tete Masterclass with 3 assists. Let's wait and see. I mean, if that happens, I'll just log off. Thank you, Karake. I appreciate it. The best be your final team because I copied it. Okay. Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you so much. Thank you, the Flying Dutchman. I needed to get rid of either an Arsenal City player, considering Game Week 12 blank, would have kept Saka otherwise. Yep, that makes complete sense. And look, in the long term, I think Zaha's better than Saka. It's just in this week, it could backfire. But look, you can't get everything right. Thank you, Cohen, and thank you to everyone else tuning in. If you haven't already, you know what to do. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. And let's try to get to 15,000 subscribers. We're very close to that milestone. And you can also check out the other socials on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. There's also the Discord server and the FPL League, so be sure to check all the links in the description below. It's been a blast today. Thank you, Jay. Thank you to everyone else. Why not wait till all the games are over before doing a reaction stream? Well, I sometimes do that. It's down to sometimes schedule. Sometimes I'm not able to wait until all the games are done, and sometimes people prefer to see it a bit earlier. And either way, I think I'm doing it. I'm not sure exactly. I need to double check the fixtures, but let me just double check. Yeah, I'm going to see quickly, but either way, I'll be keeping you updated in the community posts and all of that. So the last game is on. We double check. Yeah, we've got a game on Monday. Yeah, Leicester against Forest. The thing is, though, if we wait until after that game is done, that would be kind of like a 10 PM UK stream, unless I do it on the Tuesday. But then we've got the Champions League fantasy stream, so it makes no sense to wait for the Leicester Nottingham Forest game, to be honest. So the reaction stream, if it does happen, it probably will be tomorrow, around 6-7 PM UK time after the Leeds versus Aston Villa game. So it just makes sense, to be honest. I don't think it... Yeah, that makes no sense to do that. 500-0 to City, yeah? Well, Haaland scoring only a hat-trick in a 500-0 win. Thanks, Dylan. Good luck, mate. Thank you, Avi. Thank you, Singh. And good luck this week. Same with Alex. Thank you very much. RCM is just initials. It's just initials. It doesn't stand for right central midfield or anything weird like that. Thank you, Lee. And thank you very much for always tuning in. And I wish you all the best. Thank you, Jamba. Yeah, Singh, you just said it. I tune in later than usual. I appreciate the advice. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate it. And all the best of luck. Thank you, Sudindra, as well. And Lungani. And I'll see you in the UCL Fantasy stream, as well as the potential reaction stream and all the videos coming up, such as the Best Limitless Team and Team Selection video for Matchday 3. So be sure to tune in for all of that. And take care, enjoy the football. Hopefully some great football today and across the weekend. And I'll see you next time.